Chapter 1523. Even so, there is no need for you to kill him. It's too vicious. Can't you just refuse to enter the formation? Granny Feng shouted in the dark. She laughed coldly and loudly berated, questioning Yi Fan. She called on all the races to join forces and kill him. At this point, Yi Fan became even colder. He said unhurriedly. He said that he and I cannot live under the same sky and won't rest until one of us is dead. Since he used such unscrupulous methods to deceive me, is there a need to discuss killing him? His meaning was clear. Since they were enemies, he should just kill them. Yi Fan didn't want to argue. At the same time, he warned Granny Feng not to be enemies with him. Ah! The great sage of the Golden Crow race roared endlessly. He was so angry that his heart, liver, and lungs were about to explode. The quasi-emperor formation wasn't put to use, and was even ridiculed like this. How could he endure it? He shouted again and again. You are so unrestrained and immoral, starting a massacre here without any regard for the rules. The heavens will not tolerate this. Yi Fan sneered and said, It was clearly you guys who had dirty thoughts. In the end, I saw through you and killed you directly. Yet you still speak so indignantly. Don't you feel ashamed? Do you still want face? What's wrong with Crown Prince Huizhen, setting up a killing formation? You don't dare to enter and instead do such despicable things. What kind of ability is that? Granny Feng berated in the dark. Fine, act according to your logic. I will also set up an emperor weapon formation here, and invite you to break it. Do you dare? With a clang, Yi Fan pulled out the spirit treasure celestial being's immortal sword. Cold light flickered and formation patterns appeared. An immortal slaughtering diagram appeared in the air. He looked around and invited the great sage of the Golden Crow race, and those who were secretly berating him to enter the formation and fight. The great sage of the Golden Crow race flew into a rage out of humiliation. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He pointed at Yi Fan and said, Fellow Taoists, you all saw it. He has gone too far. Leaving this child alive will only bring disaster sooner or later. He instigated the crowd, hoping that everyone would attack together and kill Yi Fan. In particular, the few ancient royal families were the ones he sought help from. Everyone, please make your move. Our race's great emperor will definitely not forget your kindness when he descends upon this planet in the future. At this moment, the Golden Crow race's great sage even spoke these words, leaving everyone shocked. He promised the future, vowing to kill Yi Fan. What? Are you angry now? Yi Fan was calm and collected. He sneered and said, Today, I have placed an emperor weapon and am waiting for you to enter the array. Isn't that the same thing? Why are you refusing? Why are you saying that I am going too far? If you don't dare to come in, then don't complain about Crown Prince Huizhen's injustice. Everyone, if we don't get rid of him today, will definitely regret it in the future. This kid has a ruthless nature, and he'll definitely become a great enemy of all the races in the future. We must get rid of him. Granny Feng shouted in secret. That's right. This kid is too despicable. It was supposed to be a fair duel, but it ended up like this. I hope everyone can uphold justice. The Golden Crow race's great sage said sternly. Yi Fan rebuked. Crown Prince Huizhen has a filthy heart. He set up the quasi-emperor array to trick me into entering and kill me. In the end, he was packaged and whitewashed by you guys. Do you still have any shame? You might as well just throw your face on the ground. Since you want me to kill you, you've already become my enemy. Why don't you just come here openly? The facts are right in front of you. Talking nonsense like this is no better than setting up a memorial arch in a brothel. Isn't this laughable? Everyone burst into laughter, and the scene immediately became chaotic. Longma and the others naturally started to make a ruckus, shouting nonstop. The Golden Crow race's great sage's face turned ashen. In the dark, Granny Feng continued to make a ruckus, hoping that the far ancient imperial family would make a move and kill Yi Fan on the spot. Shi Zhongshuan's face carried a faint coldness as he said, Brother Ye's way of doing things is too much. Even if His Highness Huizhen harbors evil intentions, you don't have to be so extreme. It's hard to display Brother Huizhen's boldness and grandeur, and it makes us feel ashamed to be on the same level as you. Beside him, There were naturally some people who could be considered his companions. Upon hearing this, they looked at Yi Fan and all of them shook their heads. Yi Fan swept a glance at them and said directly, "Who do you think you are to be on the same level as me? I'm just a lowly person. Even the ruffians I've killed are stronger than you." You. Shi Zhongshuan coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his entire face turned red. He was so angry that his eyes suddenly became fierce and cold. What kind of person was he? He came from the sacred spirit bloodline, and had imperial blood flowing in his body. He had always been respected by others, yet today, he was completely disregarded by others. He was reprimanded as unworthy of being on the same level as him and humiliated in front of everyone. This made him so embarrassed that he wanted to vomit blood. Yi Fan swept a glance at him and then no longer looked at him, treating him like a blade of grass. At this time the Golden Crow race's great sage was moving. He wanted to rush towards the quasi-emperor killing formation and enter because he already had a bad premonition. However, Yi Fan had already locked onto him and was staring at him. He moved across the sky and directly blocked his path. The killing sword in his hand blossomed with terrifying radiance, and his aura penetrated through everything. The Golden Crow race's great sage nodded and left decisively. The other party didn't give him any chance at all. As long as he entered the formation, he would be able to protect himself. At the very least, he could avoid disaster and even deal with Yi Fan. However, his path forward was now blocked. Human race's holy physique, your way of doing things is too tyrannical. Do you want to wantonly slaughter here in front of the One Heaven Tao? You want to kill a great sage? Do you think there's no one else in this world? Granny Feng secretly shouted. Can you represent the entire world by yourself? You cowardly scoundrel. I'll settle things with you in a bit. Yi Fan coldly replied. He intercepted the old Golden Crow and walked forward step by step. This heaven and earth trembled because of him. The killing sword in his hand was filled with murderous intent and surged into the sky. No one could stop it. The Golden Crow race's great sage felt a chill. The situation was so intense that it actually developed to this extent. He couldn't take a step back even if he wanted to. His expression was ugly as he loudly shouted. What do you want? Do you want to show off your ferocious might in front of everyone? You were the one who said that you wanted to kill me. Are you afraid now? Also, don't always put your will above the heads of everyone in this world. Who do you think you are? You can't represent all of us. Yi Fan raised his sword and slashed forward. He wanted to kill the Golden Crow race's great sage. The clamor immediately quieted down. Everyone was terrified. This was the reality, and it was useless to say anything. Yi Fan wanted to kill a great sage with an emperor weapon. Naturally, everyone else was scared. Swish. The Golden Crow race's great sage was so shocked that his face turned pale. He turned into a beam of golden light and shot into the outer realm like a divine arrow, fleeing for his life. Yi Fan took a step forward. The heaven and earth changed and the mountains and rivers changed. He directly rushed into outer space and disappeared from his original spot. Revenge breeds revenge. When will there be an end to it? Tao friends, there is too much killing in this world. This old man will still say the same thing. Everything should be peaceful. The great sage Hunchuo shouted from behind and transmitted his voice. Many people staggered. They silently looked towards the heavens and observed a moment of silence for the Golden Crow race's great sage. Where do you think you're going? Yi Fan arrived above the heavens and instantly cut off the Golden Crow race's great sage's path. His face turned deathly pale. Do you know that my race's great emperor is about to descend into this world? If you act like this, there will be no place for you in this world in the future. The Golden Crow race's great sage appeared fierce. Who can say for sure what will happen in the future? Yi Fan's sword slashed forward. The Golden Crow race's great sage's scalp went numb and his heart trembled. He couldn't evade with all of his strength. Yi Fan's speed was even faster than his. At this time, it was useless even if he begged for mercy. He was deeply aware of Yi Fan's vicious reputation. A streak of sword light flashed past. The Golden Crow race's great sage only had time to let out a mournful scream before a rain of blood swirled about. Yi Fan's sword hacked off his head, and then his body collapsed inch by inch. A large expanse of blood scattered down. Everyone on the ground cried out in alarm and fled in disarray. They didn't dare to touch him. Sigh. Hun Tuo sighed softly and shook his head. This result made this place fall into absolute silence. Only after a period of time did it become noisy again. Another great sage had died. Was there still any safety left in this world? The path of immortality hadn't even opened yet, and important figures had already fallen one after another. Yi Fan descended with the long sword in his hand. The last drop of blood dripped down from the sharp blade, making him look majestic and awe-inspiring. Wherever his gaze passed, not many people dared to look him in the eye. This was a reputation he had gained through slaughter. Everyone in the northern Dipper continent knew about it, and now the people from the outer realms also truly understood it. At this moment, there was no one who wasn't afraid. Even the saints from the outer realms finally understood Yi Fan's temper. He wouldn't let anyone off if he had to kill. Yi Fan swept his gaze across the crowd. Then he raised his killing sword and walked straight ahead. He closed in on an old woman, his killing intent unconcealed. In front of him was Granny Feng. "What are you doing, fellow Taoist?" The surrounding people were all scared. Seeing him charge in this direction, they were really afraid that he would slash down with his sword and kill them all. "I'm trying to reason with her." Yi Fan pointed the long sword in his hand at Granny Feng. Why are you doing this? What enmity do I have with you?" Granny Feng's heart was pounding. She was very powerful, but when faced with the true killing sword of the numinous treasure celestial being, she similarly didn't have the slightest bit of temper. "I'll say it again. The deed has already been done, so don't erect a memorial arch in a brothel." Yi Fan sneered coldly, revealing that she was the one who had secretly urged everyone to attack. "Junior, you're too arrogant. Sooner or later, even if humans don't take you in, the heavens will." Granny Feng cursed. "Who are you to have such a huge grudge against me? Don't tell me you're an old acquaintance of Qi Tian and the others from the human race's ancient road?" Yi Fan sneered. "However, I'm not interested in finding out anymore. I'll send you on your way." This time he used the back of his sword to slap at Granny Feng. A mighty gale swept out and sent Granny Feng flying. Boom. Yi Fan followed up. He swung the killing sword in his hand and forced Granny Feng into the formation laid down by Crown Prince Huizhen of the Golden Crow race. In an instant, the great flags fluttered in the wind, and the entire place was overflowing with killing intent. "Ah!" Granny Feng screamed miserably. She was almost disintegrated in the blink of an eye. Every single formation flag slashed out with a ray of killing light, cutting her into 1,000 pieces. Even someone as powerful as the great sage couldn't withstand it. "Even if the fellow cultivators from the ancient road can't avenge me, the heavens will still take you in." Granny Feng cursed. After saying these last words, her body and soul were directly destroyed. Everyone was terrified. This formation was indeed terrifying. It was actually equivalent to an attack from a quasi-emperor. Even the great sage died in an instant after entering. There was no suspense at all. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. They felt a chill from the soles of their feet all the way to the top of their heads. All of them were shocked. The heavenly Tao is emotionless, but humans have emotions. All living beings are sufferers, and they're just struggling to survive in this world of mortals. In this world of all things, why is it that the word harmony is so precious and powerful, yet all living beings can't comprehend it? Great Sage Hunchuo sighed with emotion. When everyone heard this, it was as if they were avoiding a ghost. The area he was in was completely cleared out. Yi Fan turned around and looked at Shi Zhongshuan, coldly staring at him. "What do you want? Do you want to rely on an emperor weapon to fight against my clan's young master?" A middle-aged man stood out with an incomparably solemn expression. "Fight. He's not worthy. I'm only suppressing and killing him. On the ancient road of stars, I've killed at least 8, if not 10 divine spirits. He's nothing," Yi Fan said coldly. When everyone heard this, they were all horrified. Even Jiang Yifei, Princess Moon's spirit, Wind Phoenix, and the others were shocked. Chapter 1524. Although some of Yi Fan's achievements on the human's ancient road had been transmitted back by some foreign experts, no one could confirm it. Today it was Yi Fan himself who spoke of it. It immediately caused a huge wave. Just a few words were enough to shake the world. What were the holy spirits? They were protected by the heavens, and were unrivaled among those at the same level. They could not be killed, or else an ominous event would happen sooner or later. Almost no one dared to provoke them. But now he said that he had killed at least 8 if not 10. This was simply too shocking. Heavens, is this true? Everyone was shocked. At this moment, everyone was shocked. All the races had heard some rumors, and now, they were just confirming it. The human race's holy physique is too terrifying. If this continues, who will be able to stop him in the future? The experts of all races were worried and felt a headache coming on. Princess Moon's sprite frowned slightly. She had a bad feeling about this. She had just established a relationship with the Outerium divine spirit lineage, and now she had provoked Yi Fan, who was in the limelight. He even dared to attack Mount Meru, so what else would he not do? At this moment, all the experts were sighing. They had personally witnessed Yi Fan killing the great sage as if he was chopping firewood. Anyone would be terrified by such power. If one were to say who was uncomfortable, it would naturally be Shi Zhongshuan. Yi Fan did not think highly of him at all, and looked down on him as if he was nothing. Imperial blood flowed in Shi Zhongshuan's body, and his status was noble. No matter where he went, people had to respect him. But now, he was being spoken of in such a manner. What face did he have left? The human race's holy physique. Shi Zhongshuan's face was ashen as he shouted through gritted teeth. His thick hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were so cold that they could freeze the sky. He walked over step by step, causing the entire earth to tremble. His sword-like eyebrows were full of murderous intent. Abandon the emperor weapon. Do you dare to fight against me? His voice was cold and calm as if it came from a 10,000-year-old icehouse. It made everyone feel as if their blood had been frozen, and they expressed their shock at his strength. Yi Fan carried the celestial sword on his back, coldly glanced at him and said, "I will never use it in a battle of the same rank. Even if the great sage is at the initial rank, killing you is really not difficult." Shi Zhongshuan had always been conceited. He was an arrogant person, so how could he endure such words? He shouted, "You say that I'm not worthy, and I'm even more ashamed to stand side by side with someone like you. Today we will decide who is the hero in life and death." At this point, there was nothing more to say. If he ran away in fear today, how could he establish himself in this world in the future? He would be ridiculed wherever he went. For a conceited person, there was no other choice but to fight. They could only use facts to prove who was the strongest. "Don't flatter yourself. You really don't deserve to be on the same level as us," shouted Longma from behind. "Kill." Shi Zhongshuan's anger rose to the extreme. His blood surged, making his own fighting prowess also reach the peak. His black hair danced about chaotically, and his eyes flickered with lightning. He directly slaughtered his way over. At this moment, the terrifying aspect of this race was undoubtedly displayed. 9 divine rings appeared around his body, wrapping around him layer after layer. It was as if there were 9 immortal gates overlapping each other. With him at the center, the essence energy of the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers poured over like a great waterfall, condensing into one with his body. The vast expanse turned into his power. With every step he took, heaven and earth would tremble intensely. He was clearly less than 3 zhang tall, but it was as if a giant that towered into the heavens was passing through, about to make the great earth cave in. Moreover, auspicious light descended from the heavens strand after strand, all of it connected to his body, releasing the most resplendent radiance. Shi Zhongshuan's body erupted with a powerful aura. The sun, moon, rivers, and mountains were all about to be crushed. With a raise of his hand, he could pluck down stars from outer space. His divine might was matchless. This was his Tao, as well as the Tao of a holy spirit. It was incomparably powerful, condensing into one with the power of heaven and earth. He displayed the true art of being one with the heavens, using the power of the 10,000 Daros to attack Yi Fan. The power of holy spirits was something everyone knew. There were too many legends about them. First of all, their physiques were naturally extraordinary, difficult to find in the world. However, those at the peak far surpassed those of the same level. And at this moment, Shi Zhongshuan relied on his physical body to attack. His palms and fingers were like swords that could split the sky. The surrounding mountains and rivers were like paper, turning into ashes under the powerful fluctuations. Shi Zhongshuan had heard of Yi Fan's legend in Big Dipper, so he naturally knew how powerful his physical body was. However, he still wanted to use this to fight, proving that the holy spirits were the ones who were unparalleled under the heavens. His aura surged, and the fluctuations were so shocking that the meteors floating in outer space were about to fall. The power of his palms and fingers was world-shocking, reaching the limit of what he could display. Yi Fan's expression was cold as he walked over with large strides. He was extremely domineering, looking down from above to suppress his opponent. Along the way, he adjusted his body to its peak state. With a rumble, he directly brandished his right fist, using strength to meet strength with strength. He faced Shi Zhongshuan head-on. The Celestial Emperor fist was displayed in front of the people of Big Dipper, suppressing the 9 heavens and shaking the 9 underworlds. Boundless golden light surged, engulfing in all directions, its aura devouring mountains and rivers. Everyone was indescribably shaken. Human race's holy physique, go die. How can you compete with my holy spirit bloodline for number 1? Shi Zhongshuan roared to increase his confidence. His entire body's essence energy surged, and he seemed to have turned into an expanse of Tao laws as he charged over. Boom! This strike shook the heavens and the earth. The fist and the palm collided, and huge beams of light tore through the heavens and the earth, spreading in all directions. Everyone dodged far enough, but they still felt pain in their bodies. The blazing light almost blinded their eyes. Huge cracks crisscrossed, as if they were splitting into outer space. It was incomparably terrifying. This strike split apart this place. If it weren't for the many great sage taking action to protect this place, this great wasteland would have inevitably sunk, and nothing would exist. Ah! An unwilling cry sounded. Shi Zhongshuan flew out horizontally, falling out from the dazzling sphere of light. Both of his hands were dripping with blood. One was broken, and the other turned into powder. He retreated step by step in the void. Huge cracks appeared beneath his feet, extending for over 100 li in the void. The final shockwaves were still like this, so one could well imagine what kind of heavy blow he had just received. Kacha! Shi Zhongshuan's pair of stone arms continued to release cracking sounds. Starting from his hands, they exploded inch by inch. Blood mixed with the stone skin, flying in all directions. Pooh! In the end, Shi Zhongshuan coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. Both of his arms were completely broken, and only fresh blood flowed out. The Emperor blood emitted sparkling beams of light, flickering with an intimidating light. Even someone as powerful as a divine spirit couldn't compare to Yi Fan in terms of physical strength. Shi Zhongshuan didn't believe in the supernatural, and wanted to use reality to prove it. In the end, he paid a disastrous price. For him, this was an unbearable weight. He had already spoken those words, but in the end it was like a bolt from the blue. He was so shaken that he almost fell onto the ground. The pain of his body couldn't compare to the feeling of defeat in his heart. He was this arrogant and conceited. He had always been shrouded in a divine halo, and no matter where he went, he was always respected. Yet today, he suffered a crushing defeat in front of all the heroes of the heavens. What face did he have left? He raised his head towards the sky and released a sorrowful roar. His entire body was trembling. When the light scattered, Yi Fan stood in his original position. Not even a corner of his clothes was damaged. He was otherworldly, but no one would forget his tyrannical fist just now. It was only a single fist, yet it shattered the heaven and earth and destroyed the enemy's most powerful attack. Just how terrifying of a secret technique was this? Only now did undying mountains and Pooh narrow his eyes. This was the first time he revealed a strange expression. He seemed to be reminiscing about Yi Fan's fist just now. As for the others, they had long been shocked. A single fist shattered the arms of a divine spirit. It was just too shocking. If this kind of powerful fighting strength continued to develop, it would truly be difficult for anyone to restrict Yi Fan in the future. The Wind Phoenix revealed a shocked expression. It was just a single fist, yet she couldn't help but let out a light sigh. From the looks of it, there was simply no way to surpass it. The others were like this as well. This was a battle accomplishment that made everyone feel despair. I refuse to accept this. Shi Zhongshuan's black hair stood on end. His hair danced about like ghostly hands. His expression was one of grief and indignation. His bloodline was special. It was the product of his clan's imperial bloodline, and another clan's great sage. For the sake of freeing himself from the shackles of being unable to become a complete human, his birth had extraordinary significance. However, he was completely defeated like this, making him feel as if his heart was being chewed on by 100 bugs. His entire body shone. All of the blood in his body burned, and the bones where his arm was broken released gabbing sounds. They regrew, and this time, it was an arm formed from flesh. It was sturdy and powerful, flowing with precious light. Chang. At the same time, a heavenart halberd appeared in his hands. The enormous halberd blade flickered with ice-cold radiance. Cold light shot out in all directions, and cold energy filled the air. It made the leaves of the endless great trees in the distant mountains dance about, as if it was late autumn. With a schwa sound he hacked over. A streak of lightning tore through the horizon, and this was the halberd blade's radiance. It was world-shocking, and even if all of the saints attacked together, they would be hacked to pieces. The divine spirit itself was powerful enough, and the strength of his flesh was extremely high. The weapon he held in his hands was naturally not an ordinary item, but a rare holy artifact. Yi Fan didn't want to waste any time either, fearing that something unforeseen might happen. He directly rushed forward, still using his bare hands to face the attack. This time, everyone saw everything clearly. A pair of golden fists carried tens of thousands of strands of Tao light as they suppressed downwards. Kacha! A large piece of the halberd blade was smashed into pieces. With a chung sound, the great halberd changed owners, seized by Yi Fan. This rare weapon had changed owners. Shi Zhongshuan was incomparably humiliated and resentful. The first time was fine, but the second time was the same. He instantly fell into a disadvantageous position, unable to resist. A streak of snow-white radiance flashed past. Yi Fan brandished the heavenart halberd and hacked downwards. Shi Zhongshuan's expression changed greatly as he quickly evaded. However, this was futile. He had evaded this attack, but he couldn't evade Yi Fan's storm-like attacks. In a confrontation like this, natural laws and divine chains of order danced about. The slightest fluctuation was enough to tear apart heaven and earth, let alone an all-out attack. Pooh! In the end, Shi Zhongshuan was chopped in half at the waist by Yi Fan. He cried out miserably as the lower half of his body exploded. He roared angrily, and the upper half of his body wanted to escape. However, it was already too late. Yi Fan brandished the great halberd again. Blood splashed everywhere as his head was chopped off, resting on the halberd blade. "Show mercy!" Princess Moon's spirit called out. Meanwhile, the eyes of Shi Zhongshuan's servants were all blood-red. They rushed over to save their master. Yi Fan coldly glanced at the crowd. The great halberd in his hand trembled, and with a soft pu sound, Shi Zhongshuan's head exploded. His flesh and blood were badly mutilated, and his primordial spirit was extinguished. Suddenly, a dangerous aura erupted. This divine tool wanted to devour Yi Fan. He coldly waved his arm, and with a rumble, the deity within the halberd was blasted apart. After that, he tossed the great halberd to the golden-winged rock king. Pooh! Pooh! At the same time, Yi Fan brandished the celestial Tharch fist, and the few servants from the Holy Spirit race who had rushed over were all smashed into pieces. Blood splashed everywhere, and their bodies and souls were completely destroyed. This scene shocked everyone. It was just this simple. Yi Fan, who had returned from the ancient starry sky path, was almost invincible. It was difficult for those of the same generation to contend against him. On the ancient path there are at least 800 people like you, if not 1,000. His calm voice shook the souls of many people. Chapter 1525. Shi Zhongshuan was dead, killed just like that in the great wilderness. A powerful divine spirit did not last long in front of the saintly physique of the human race. This scene made people shudder. This battle was like a thunderstorm, fierce and swift. It ended too quickly. Even great sage Hunchuo could only open his mouth and sigh. Alas! How many people could stand out and say that they could achieve such a feat? It could be said to be frightening to the soul, silencing all the experts. After a long time, when the main characters had all left, this place was filled with discussion and clamor. Now there was a difficult problem in front of everyone. In the future, how many people could defeat Yi Fan? This was no longer a problem limited to the Big Dipper. It was a problem that gave all the races in the Outer Realms a headache. It seems that the legends are true. He really killed until he was unrivaled on the ancient road of the human race. In the future, he will have a place in the highest temple of the universe. The strongest of the human race has never fallen out of the top 15 in the myriad realms. Based on this, he will definitely be one of the top dozen in the future. Many people were discussing. Some were happy, while others were worried. They wanted to stop Yi Fan. This was no longer a problem of one or two races. But who could do it now? Unless a true quasi-emperor descended, it would be difficult to stop him. In the end, Princess Moon's spirit did not stop Yi Fan. Even though she had the Julie painting with her, she did not make a move. She sighed softly. In the past, they had fought at the Qinling Celestial Pond. If they became enemies again today, it would be even more difficult to resolve in the future. And now, the potential that Yi Fan had displayed made even the immortal inheritances wary. It was the same for everyone to deal with Yi Fan. Unless they could kill him in one strike, if they let him go, there would be a catastrophe in the future. I wonder if we can successfully resolve our old grudges in the future, she muttered to herself. The gathering continued. The ancient continent above the City of Darkness became lively again. Although this battle was shocking, it was only an interlude. The discussion of the opening of the path of immortalization still needed to be carried out. Congratulations, it seems that you have gained a lot on the ancient road of the human race. Your cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. You have frightened all the realms. In a pavilion surrounded by clouds, Huolin drank Dao comprehension tea as she spoke to Yi Fan. She had a charming smile on her face. I'm sure you also took a trip on the ancient path and returned to your ancestral land. Naturally, you entered a vast starry sky and your harvest was not small. Yi Fan smiled. It seems that I have to go to the starry sky too, Jiang Yifei said with a soft sigh. It seems that I have to go to the starry sky too. A long time ago, I easily defeated your race's divine body. There have always been rumors in the outside world that you're the son of the Eternal Universe Emperor. I wonder if it's true or not. Ji Ziyue revealed a dimple on her face and her eyes sparkled as she asked. Jiang Yifei was handsome and handsome. He shook his head and sighed. A few of my race's princes appeared one after another in the most terrifying dark upheaval. Almost all of them died in battle. Jiang Yifei was handsome and handsome. Hearing this, he shook his head, sighed softly, and said, a few of our crown princes appeared one after another in the most terrifying dark turmoil, and almost all of them died in battle. Jiang Yifei was handsome and handsome. He shook his head and sighed. A few of my race's princes appeared in the most terrifying dark upheaval. Almost all of them died in battle. Everyone was in awe. They thought of the legends. The Jiang family's princes had shed their last blood for the human race, quelling the dark upheaval and bringing peace to the human race. Ji Ziyue blinked. She heard some clues. Jiang Yifei said that almost all the princes of his family had died in battle. Many heroes had died. Ji Ziyue blinked. She heard some clues. Jiang Yifei said that almost all the princes of his family had died in battle. It was obvious that someone else had survived. Only one person left alone. However, he was certain to die. He said that he was going to search for karma and disappeared from this world. Jiang Yifei said calmly. Longma and the others cursed. The instigator of the dark upheaval was too cruel, harming others and himself. Not far away, Empu drank by himself. He raised his head and drank a cup of good wine. It had been a long time since he had enjoyed it. His pale face revealed a hint of reminiscence. He glanced over and said, if that is the dark upheaval, then this era is the dark apocalypse. As soon as he said this, the nearby cultivators all felt a chill. Those who had come into contact with him were already suspicious of his identity, and had more or less guessed his background. Survival of the fittest. Even the Supremes have no choice. Empu drank 3 cups of wine in a row. He then stood up and left without any hesitation. These mindless words made everyone's hearts go cold. They were even more worried about the future. Those who knew his identity in particular felt their hearts sink. Yi Fan's expression was grave. He sighed softly. This was a golden age that had been waiting for endless ages. All the supreme experts of the heavens and 10,000 realms would rush over. All the great life forms would enter and break the seal. The accumulation from ancient times until now would blossom brilliantly in this era. How exactly would it end? Perhaps it would be extremely cruel, surpassing everyone's imagination. Not long after, someone from the Central Imperial Court came to invite Yi Fan over to discuss the opening of the path of immortality. Everyone was shocked. Even the great sage regarded him with such importance and couldn't avoid him. He had to participate. This could be said to be a great honor. The Wind Phoenix was shocked. This was the first time these older generation figures took the initiative to invite someone from the younger generation. Thinking about it, he indeed had the qualifications. Not to mention his combat strength, just the organization of the Celestial Court was enough. To dare to destroy Mount Meru, how astonishing was this? It was enough to rank as one of the greatest powers in the present age, and he was the sect master. Not long after, Hualin Jiang Yifei, Princess Moon's spirit, the Wind Phoenix and the other inheritors of the great undying sects were also invited to enter the Central Imperial Court. The representatives of the various clans all spoke. They wanted to set some rules that were beneficial to their clans, but it was too difficult to reach an agreement. The disputes were endless, and during this period, the great sage even had a falling out and went out to fight, resulting in a disaster. As for the battles between saints, there were even more. Bloody cases occurred from time to time near the ancient Sun continent, causing chaos. This distinguished meeting lasted for half a month, far exceeding everyone's expectations. In the end, it ended on a bad note. Apart from a limited number of matters that were agreed upon, the others were all rejected. It could be said that this meeting was extremely unsuccessful. It didn't achieve the desired results. The clans weren't satisfied and decided to set a time to discuss again. Without a doubt, the more powerful the inheritance, the more powerful they would be. They wouldn't shrink back. At the same time, the heroes of Big Dipper also had a bad premonition. The saints from outside this region were only the vanguard, the pathfinders. The sect masters of the various regions hadn't even moved yet. The great emperor of the Golden Crow race isn't the only quasi-emperor. There will definitely be a few more. This was the consensus of everyone. As for the half-step quasi-emperor and the ancestral artifacts of the various clans, they were also destined to appear. The future was bound to be extremely cruel. On the last day of the meeting, the void mirror shone on its own and descended on the outskirts of Undying Mountain. It released endless immortal radiance and floated up and down. Then it disappeared with a swoosh as it broke into the southern region. The meeting ended. In the end, it didn't go according to everyone's wishes. Ji Ziyue was forcibly taken away by the great sage of Ji clan, because the people of Undying Mountain had come into being. He was afraid that something unexpected would happen to her. Yi Fan made an agreement with her to visit Ji clan, after a period of time. Then he would head north and prepare to take a look at the Jade Pool. That 9-aperture divine stone had always worried him. Along the way north, he naturally passed by Mount Purple. Facing this ancient emperor mountain, his heart was filled with endless emotions. There were too many mysteries buried here. No one could say for sure what had happened to great Emperor Wushi. Did he fight his way into the immortal domain, or did he truly die in meditation? Here he thought of many people. He silently lit some incense and offered sacrifices to the 5th-generation Yuan Taoist master Zhang Lin. He still remembered the scene of Patriarch Zhang Lin turning into ashes under the brilliant morning glow after the victory of that battle, and the destruction of the Valley of Divinity. He bid farewell to Saintess Yang Yi with a smile and the unique aura of a hero. He left the world in a carefree manner, turning into a rain of light, leaving behind a period of glory and sorrow. That was one of the most unforgettable memories of Yi Fan's life. Even thinking about it made his heart ache. Patriarch Zhang Lin and Celestial King Jiang Taishu were the two people he respected the most. Patriarch Zhang Lin was a true hero. His style was peerless, enough to make the world pale in comparison. Although his fate was full of misfortunes, his brilliance was enough to illuminate all the haze. Yi Fan stopped for a long time, then came to an abandoned stone stronghold on the other side of Mount Purple. There were some tombstones here. Fifth Master Zhang was finally buried in the homeland where he had once lived. He silently worshipped here for a long time before getting up and leaving. When will the Wuxia scripture in Mount Purple appear again? And that Wuxia bell seemed to be in a state of half-resurrection, resisting and disintegrating all the pressure from the outside world. It was full of unsolved mysteries, as if a great emperor was controlling it. The path of immortality is about to open. Everything will be revealed. Yi Fan continued north and entered the Divine City. He came to the place where he had truly risen to prominence. The stone gambling war, the breakthrough of the four extremes, the sacrifice of the white-robed Divine King. All these scenes played out before his eyes. The Divine City was magnificent. The city walls were like mountain ridges, stretching endlessly and majestically. It was as if the ancient city where the celestial emperor lived had descended into the mortal world. Yi Fan entered the city and wandered around the stone shops. He discovered a phenomenon that left him speechless. There were many portraits of him. All gamblers would worship his portrait before cutting their stones, praying for good luck. Since when did I become a fraud? Why am I being worshipped like this? Yi Fan was speechless. He really didn't know what to say. Of course, most of the people worshipping his portrait were ordinary people, and most of them were gamblers. He shook his head again. No matter what, his reputation in the Divine City was too great. He was revered as the sixth heaven source patriarch. To many people who gambled on stones, he was like a god, and so they often worshipped him. Hey, who is that person? Why does he look like the person in the portrait? Oh my God, is it the patriarch's spirit? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? No, it's not right. It's a living person. I fell down and immediately cut the stone. Good luck. The original spirit is swaying in front of me. Holy sh*t, why did I see it too? You're not the only one with good luck. Is this real? Some ordinary people saw Yi Fan. They were all dumbstruck. Then, like an uproar, they surrounded him. In just a blink of an eye, the noise reached the sky. The original spirit is here. It's really here. Patriarch, please bestow us with some original spirit. We have been worshipping him every day. 3 jaw sticks a day have never been less. A group of people shouted, causing a commotion. Yi Fan had a headache. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. He had been wondering about the special power of faith in the myriad chi cauldron these years. It turned out that the source was here. He couldn't help but rub his chin. Yi Fan walked directly towards a majestic stone square. Today he came here for no other reason than the Stone King of the past. He wanted to find out the truth. Chapter 1526. The Ji Clan's stone square occupied a vast area. It could be called a city within a city. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and giant vines crawled about. Origin stones piled up like small mountains were everywhere. Yi Fan passed through a dozen or so courtyards and roughly looked around. Then he directly entered the Heaven Divine Garden and arrived at the centermost area. This place was filled with wondrous trees. The trees were covered in sparkling and translucent flowers. As the wind blew, the fallen petals flew about, and a sweet fragrance assailed the nostrils. At this moment, a rain of flowers danced about. Every single petal was translucent, and there was a kind of otherworldly beauty to it. 100 or so years had passed, and the stone square's former protectors had long changed. He didn't recognize any of them. The Yuan Taoist master is here. Everyone hurry and move aside. Let the ancestor guide us and bestow us with good fortune. Someone shouted. Normally, this divine garden in the depths was very peaceful. Even if people came, they would quietly choose their stones. Today, however, there was a sea of people. More than half of the city's people heard about this place and hurried over. The outside was already so packed that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The Ji Clan Stone Square's gate was about to collapse. Even with people guarding it, it was still difficult to stop the flood of people. Fellow Taoist you are? An elder from the Ji Clan asked with a doubtful expression. Now Yi Fan's relationship with the Ji Clan wasn't shallow. He shouldn't have come to find trouble with them, but why did he come here? It seemed like he really did want to cut the stones. This wasn't the past anymore. Even divine origin wasn't very useful to Yi Fan, unless it was divine origin liquid. So why did he come here today? Mortals didn't understand, and cultivators were also very confused. Now that Yi Fan's name had shaken the world, unless a legendary immortal origin appeared in the world, there wouldn't be anything in the stone square that was worth his attention. I just came to take a look and cut a stone, Yi Fan answered. When he said this, it immediately caused an uproar. And now, what kind of identity did he have? The things that could catch his eye were definitely not small. Could it be that an immortal medicine appeared here? Many people's hearts jumped, and then their blood immediately boiled. A few cultivators thought themselves clever, and directly picked up a few seemingly extraordinary stones. What if they guessed correctly? They believed that as long as it was a place where Yi Fan appeared, there would definitely be something good. On this day, the business of the Ji family stone workshop was very good. Since someone had started, there were naturally others who followed suit. They frantically fought over the stones, and there were even a lot of stones being auctioned. Yi Fan shook his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect him to have such an effect. He wasn't worried at all that the king of the stone nation would be taken away by someone else. The Ji family's stone workshop was in a hubbub. People were scrambling to choose their stones. In a moment, the turnover was almost equivalent to the total turnover of the past year. Unfortunately, those who harbored such thoughts ended up empty-handed. Almost no one managed to cut out anything decent. All of them grimaced in pain, feeling that they had been tricked. Yi Fan walked around the Heaven Series stone square and frowned slightly. He actually did not sense anything. He did not see any decent stones. There was no Stone King here. He stepped out and walked towards the slightly inferior gardens one after another. He almost walked around half of the stone square, but he still did not sense anything special. In recent years, have there been any supernatural incidents in the Divine City? Or any special items? Yi Fan asked the people of the Ji family. No. The old man shook his head. It's just that 100 years ago, someone cut out dozens of divine worms and said that they could be used as primers for medicine. A pair of divine worms could prolong one's life for 1 or 2 years. It caused a sensation at that time, another old man added. It was definitely not the king of the stone nation. It was nothing. Yi Fan rubbed his chin. He opened his third eye and carefully observed the surroundings. Seeing this, the discussion became even louder. They believed that there must be something extraordinary in the Ji family's stone square. Yi Fan's expression was enough to explain everything. There were quite a few people who made a move. Yi Fan looked over, and they bought the stones from that place. In the end, they were left empty-handed, and they still didn't have any gains. Is this a two-man show? Are they trying to trick us? Someone muttered. However, they didn't think it was necessary. With Yi Fan's current status, how could he stoop so low as to do such a thing? People of the Ji family knew that the god and the pearl of their family had a close relationship with Yi Fan. He would never trick them. If they needed help, he would do his best to help them. That was why they didn't mind. They stayed next to him and answered all his questions. Recently, have you used the stones here on a large scale? Yi Fan asked. Yes, we built a garden behind it. We moved some waste materials there and used them as the foundation, answered an elder. Take me there, said Yi Fan. It was a newly built garden. Of course, it was more than 10 years old, but compared to the old garden, there were a lot of stones scattered here. People couldn't hold back anymore. Although they were afraid of offending Yi Fan, they didn't dare to show their faces. However, they still bought some stones in secret. Some waste materials were used as the foundation. They were built underneath, said an elder. Yi Fan didn't know what to say. If the king of stones was really used as the foundation, it would be a big problem. He walked around the magnificent building while his third eye shone brightly. I can feel it. Yi Fan murmured. He was shocked. He had used his original technique and sensed a strange qi, but it had retreated in an instant. Yi Fan had a feeling that it was the king of stones. Things were going better than he had expected. After so many years, the king of stones was still here. It was good news. Many people widened their eyes and stared at the buildings. If they had great magic power, they would definitely rob them, because the divine item might be under the ground. Unfortunately, facing the current holy physique of the human clan, they did not dare to do so even if they had several times the courage. Out of everyone's expectations, Yi Fan stood there silently for a very long time. He did not walk towards the buildings. Ripples spread out from his feet in all directions. Many patterns could be seen clearly on the ground. They were dazzling and interweaved like lightning, but they didn't hurt anyone. This was the extension of Yi Fan's divine sense. It reached every nook and cranny, searching for traces of the Stone King. He was about to find it. Oh, these stones are glowing. Oh my God, they are treasures. Everyone cried out in surprise. Hundreds and thousands of stones in the stone garden were glowing and flying into the sky, trying to escape. Some experts hurriedly took action to snatch these stones. They didn't care about the price. This place was in chaos. It was a strange scene. All kinds of glowing stones were flying in the air. Many people were excited to the extreme. This seemed to be a treasure with a spirit, and it had been alarmed by Yi Fan. It's not just one piece of divine material, but a pile of them. Everyone's eyes turned green. Unfortunately, when someone couldn't wait to cut the stone and open the stone, they found that it was empty inside. There was nothing inside. This was all an illusion. Even though all the flying stones were glowing, they were ordinary stones after they were caught. There was nothing special about them. Yi Fan's feet shook. Genesis runes densely covered the void. The light on all kinds of stones dimmed and fell to the ground. He was very surprised. This king of stones was extraordinary. It must be a living creature. Otherwise, how could it have such means? It seemed to be very powerful, so he had to be careful. Everyone was in a daze. They had rejoiced for nothing. Even now, they could only smile bitterly. Trying to play tricks in front of the Yuan Taoist master was like shooting oneself in the foot. Yi Fan silently observed for a moment. He locked on to the direction and walked forward. He went straight to a lake in the courtyard. The grass and trees here were fresh, and the lake water was clear. It was like a gem embedded here. Yi Fan raised his hand and grabbed at the lake. His golden fingers covered the sky and the earth, covering the entire lake. Boom! Waves rushed into the sky. No one had thought that the originally calm lake would boil at this moment. Many waste stones flew up and violently collided. There was actually the pressure of a saint. Heavens, what is that? Could it be that a saint is hiding here? It can't be an ancient that has yet to come into being, right? So the saint physique came for him. I really thought there was an immortal celestial medicine. Everyone was shocked. No one had thought that there would be a mysterious existence in the stone square. It had been hibernating all this time. What on earth was it? Walala! A sound came from the lake. A group of giant stones emerged from the water and were placed on the ground by Yi Fan. He couldn't help but sigh. In the past, he really couldn't deal with the King of Stones because it was comparable to a saint. These stones were all blossoming with auspicious colors and divine splendor. They were all trembling as if they were about to soar into the sky. Yi Fan chuckled and said, "You're still using smokescreen at this point. It's useless against me." He used a shifting divine ability to move all the other stones away. Only a meter-tall broken stone was left. He had set his sights on this target. This stone was an earthy gray color, and was not eye-catching at all. There were many cracks on its surface, and it looked like it was about to break into pieces. There was even a hole in the front and back. Anyone would think that it was a useless stone that could not contain immortal treasures. Otherwise, the Ji family wouldn't have placed it in the lake and treated it as a river stone. "All of you step back a bit," Yi Fan said. Everyone took a step back after hearing this. This King of Stones was definitely not simple and not easy to deal with. One has to know that when the sacred prince was cut out, he was only a powerful existence. As for the sacred prince, he was just an egg that was taken away by the ancient race. And now, they could see that this was at least a saint. The primal chaos was hazy, and the stone was no longer moving. However, it revealed a type of origin energy. Strands of primal chaos pervaded the air, making this place seem mysterious and unfathomable. Everyone was shocked. From the past until now, they had never heard of anyone encountering primal chaos energy when cutting a stone. Could this be something from before the creation of the world? Everyone revealed a strange expression. This 1-meter square gray stone suddenly became extraordinary. It made them feel as if they had returned to the beginning of all living things. Yi Fan's heart skipped a beat. An indescribable feeling came to him, making him feel that something was out of the ordinary. His heavenly eye had long been opened, but he could not see through it. This was something that had never happened before. He was the Yuan Taoist master, and now that he had mastered the heavenly eye, he was the absolute authority in the field of origin techniques. This kind of heavenly eye should be able to see through all kinds of stones. However, this time, it defied common sense. There seemed to be a ball of immortal energy within the stone, and it was wrapping around something. No matter how bright his eyes were, he could not see through it. There's no other way. I'll have to cut it open and see what's inside. Yi Fan stepped forward and prepared to cut the stone. Chapter 1527. As soon as Yi Fan was about to take action, Stone King trembled and retreated several steps. There was even more chaotic energy around it. Shwa. Divine chains of order appeared between Yi Fan's golden palm and fingers. They descended like divine phoenix feathers, locking it in place and preventing it from budging an inch. Hong. Primal chaos surged and suddenly exploded. It was as if a world had been split apart, shaking the entire stone square. Everyone was horrified. Stone King was even more powerful than they had imagined. What was this thing? There was too much chaotic energy. Normally, this kind of thing would only appear in newly opened small worlds, or at the edge of the cosmos. How could it be so strong? Yi Fan used his finger as a blade to carve on the stone material. He didn't want to injure the things inside, and wanted to peel them off layer by layer. Kacha. A layer of earthen gray stone skin fell off. This place immediately erupted with 9-colored divine multicolored light. It was so dazzling that everyone couldn't open their eyes. It truly was an astonishing scene. Everyone backed up in alarm. They watched from the distance, feeling incredibly bewildered. They had never seen this kind of scene before. First, there was primal chaos, and then there was this kind of resplendent immortal multicolored light. Yi Fan took action again. Stone fragments rustled down. A large piece of the stone skin fell off, making the stone tremble endlessly. Wonglong. Waves of clear energy surged, turning into strand after strand of dazzling light. It was as if an immortal was ascending. Many miraculous scenes appeared in this garden. It was as if great emperors were shouting one after another. It was also as if the great gates of an immortal domain had been opened, revealing a vast and dazzling world. Stone flying immortal. This scene appeared again. Normally, this type of scene would only appear when rare treasures were born. Different immortal materials were accompanied by different scenes. This time, the flying immortal in the stone was clearly too shocking. Everyone could clearly feel that there were great emperors roaring and struggling one after another. What is that? Everyone felt a wave of trembling. This was clearly a type of irregular scene and not a real person, but it made everyone tremble. When had something like this ever happened when cutting stones? It was as if there really were great emperors standing side by side, overlooking the endless past and facing the common people. They released an aura of supremacy, making everyone feel like they were about to kneel down in defeat. There were no energy fluctuations at all, not even the slightest bit of pressure. However, it was just this intimidating. An incomparable supreme being aura made everyone feel reverence. What was inside the stone? This left everyone shaken, and they began to mutter inwardly. Stone flying immortal. The irregular scene this time was different from the legends, and it left everyone stunned. The illusory immortal domain slowly faded away in the light. The shadows of these great emperors all disappeared, slowly dissipating into the world. Crack. Yi Fan continued to cut open the stone, bringing everyone's thoughts back to reality. The various visions of the flying immortal in the stone also disappeared, ending the illusion. However, everyone still couldn't let it go. It was as if they really experienced a scene of emperors appearing in this world. They felt a boundless atmosphere, unable to say anything for a long time. Following the continuous cracking sounds, a lot of the broken stone skin was shaved off, and it began to struggle again very fiercely. Even though Yi Fan was born with divine strength, he was still surprised. The strength of this rock was not small. It was much stronger than ordinary saints. If not for him holding it down, it would definitely have flown away. At the same time, a desolate aura suddenly erupted as a world smashed towards Yi Fan. That's right, this was a vast world, incomparably vast. Towering mountains, boundless waterfalls, and ancient trees towered up into the sky. It was like a divine land of desolation, where the myriad of races coexisted. A world suddenly appeared in the air, pressing down on Yi Fan. No matter who it was, they would be shocked. This world was formed from a powerful will, wanting to ram into his sea of consciousness and suppress his immortal foundation. The powerful Yi Fan naturally wouldn't allow the Stone King to succeed. The tiny golden figure in the center of his brows sat cross-legged, directly blocking all of this. However, he didn't shatter it because it looked somewhat familiar, causing him to be dazed. Yi Fan was shocked. He looked carefully and saw that this was a vast land of mountains and rivers. Many scenes seemed familiar. The other shore of the starry sky, Earth. He finally recognized that this was the land of his hometown. Naturally, it wasn't the same as what he was seeing now, but the vast world that only cultivators could come into contact with. He had once returned to Earth, and after careful observation, he found that the real world was incomparably vast, many times larger than what he knew. However, it was all enveloped by a great formation and sealed. The current mortal world was only a small part of it. He had been to Kunlun, Mount Longhu, Mount Mao, and other places. He had also been to Changbai Ancestral Mountain, but all of them were sealed by great formations. Only a small part of it was exposed. This is the ancient land of Earth that wasn't sealed. Yi Fan was truly astonished. The first time he returned to Earth, he saw all sorts of mountains towering into the sky. He didn't know how many tens of thousands of meters tall they were, but they were almost identical to what he had just seen. What was going on? How could this Stone King reflect the ancient world on the other side of the starry sky? Could it be that the creature in the stone came from Earth? This was too shocking, and it truly challenged one's state of mind. Fuxi, the Yellow Emperor, the Yangxiang clan, Laozi, the Buddha, and other powerful figures had never been seen after entering the cosmos. Who would have thought that he would meet one here today? Yi Fan's heart was heavy and his expression was extremely solemn. He didn't dare to be careless in the slightest as he began to cut the stone again in order to peel the creature out. The vast world disappeared, but those scenes were imprinted in Yi Fan's heart, making him feel the aura of his homeland. It was like it was calling him, asking him to return. He had many questions. This creature was sealed in the stone, and felt that it was at least a creature from the primordial era. This was a predecessor that was many times older than the Yan Emperor, the Yellow Emperor, and the Yangxiang clan. If it wasn't Fuxi, the Yellow Emperor, and other beings that were both human and divine, then who could it be? Where was the ancient era? The era of the 99 Dragon Mountains? That's very ancient. That calamity swept through the heavens and 10,000 realms before finally landing on Earth. Yi Fan's fingers didn't stop as he slowly cut the stone. He felt that the creature that could suppress the stone was definitely not one of the great predecessors listed above. It was just that this person was sufficiently ancient. At this point, Yi Fan felt that Earth was more and more mysterious. Apart from the final Kunlun landing there seemed to be many unknown secrets. Kacha. With a light sound, the stone was cut open and emitted boundless light like a small sun. Many people immediately closed their eyes, unable to look straight at it. What kind of immortal material was this? Some of the most powerful cultivators endured the pain in their eyes and stared here, wanting to see clearly. Yi Fan's mind trembled. His heavenly eye shot out an astonishing light. He didn't dare to believe what he was seeing. This was a type of source, something that theoretically existed in the Heavenly Origin book. According to speculation, it should exist in this world, but none of the previous Yuan Taoist masters had ever seen it. In the past, Yi Fan had only heard about this kind of thing when he was at the sacred cliff. The undying Taoist primordial spirit was sealed in the immortal source, so it should be this kind of material. According to the information he grasped, if one wanted to remain undying, even this kind of source couldn't seal the great emperor. It was simply impossible, unless they paid an unimaginably huge price. For a supreme being, This material was only a bit stronger than a divine source. There was a creature sealed in the divine source that possessed a vigorous life aura. It was emitting a kind of vitality that gave people a feeling of the birth of all living things. As the remaining stone skin fell off, a large part of this rarely seen immortal source was gradually revealed. There was actually a little fellow inside that was currently looking at Yi Fan. Oh meow la bet. A mumbling sound transmitted from the immortal source. This creature was talking to Yi Fan, as if it was expressing some apprehension and dissatisfaction. What are you saying? Yi Fan fixed this immortal source in place and released his golden battle chi to deal with it. Ali Mayalagu. This little creature continued to speak, and its words were clearly transmitted to Yi Fan's ears. Primal chaos pervaded the air. A mysterious mist lingered around the immortal source, blocking other people's line of sight. It was as unfathomable as immortal mist. And at this time, Yi Fan was very close. He could clearly see what was inside. Inside the immortal source was actually a child. This made him feel that it was inconceivable. He clearly felt the power of a saint, but when he cut it open, it was actually a child. Moreover, he was chubby and charmingly naive. This was a child that looked to be about 3 or 4 years old, completely naked. It was a child. His pupils were like black gemstones, and his entire body was white and clean. He didn't look dangerous at all, and even looked very cute. Yi Fan was a bit stunned. Previously, he thought for a long time, but he didn't expect it to be such a chubby child. He was white and chubby, and seemed harmless to both man and beast. What the F***ck Dan Fufen? This child saw that he didn't make a move, so he became more courageous. He put away his fearful and alarmed expression, and began to talk loudly with him. The immortal source's shape was extremely special, like a small coffin, but also like a crystal bed. The child laid inside, and it was extremely comfortable. Only, now that it was raised by Yi Fan and fixed in place, the nervousness in his heart didn't completely disappear. He carefully confronted Yi Fan. Meanwhile, the primal chaos around the immortal source never scattered, making him look more and more extraordinary. One has to understand that creatures that could naturally gather primal chaos were all extraordinary. Yi Fan's expression was extremely gloomy. He fixed the immortal source and carefully thought about it. This matter was too strange, and no matter how he looked at it, it was a bit strange. It was just a child. Yet he had the power of a saint at such a young age. This wasn't just heaven-defying, it was simply unheard of. It didn't conform to common sense, and it was just too subversive. Unless he wasn't a child and only had this appearance, it really didn't make sense. His aptitude was more abnormal than anyone he knew of. He awakened more than 100 years ago, and was sealed in the immortal source. If he cultivated during this period of time, the immortal source should have cracked like the sacred prince in the past. It was clear that this child didn't cultivate, and the immortal source didn't have any cracks. It was still in the sealed state, and this made Yi Fan feel a headache. He carefully inspected the child's body, and then his eyes stared at his immortal source, preparing to get to the bottom of it. This child's appearance was too strange. The most important thing is that he might have come from the other side of the starry skies, Earth. He is mysterious and unfathomable. I have to get to the bottom of this. Chapter 1528. Sajalat Dharma Tree Gulu. The divine child widened his eyes, panting with anger and fear. His black gem-like eyes were filled with nervousness as he stared at Yi Fan. Yi Fan's expression was solemn. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at his immortal foundation, preparing to probe his sea of consciousness. The child's forehead was sparkling and sparkling, spotlessly white and translucent, as if it was carved out of jade. The divine child grew even more uneasy. He clawed his hands and legs, wanting to break free from the immortal foundation and flee. Sadly, the immortal foundation wasn't an ordinary object. It was extremely difficult to break it open, let alone the fact that it was locked down by Yi Fan. It was basically impossible for a crack to appear. With a buzzing sound, Yi Fan's forehead shone with a brilliant light as a strand of his divine sense shot out. It was like a comet shooting through the air, shooting straight into the immortal foundation of the child. He had to get to the bottom of this. The origins of this child were too bizarre, causing him to feel uneasy. The vast sea of consciousness was like a vast ocean, boundlessly vast and resplendent. It was extremely tranquil. And in the center of this sea, there was a towering platform that towered into the sky, radiating boundless radiance. This was the immortal foundation of the divine child. It was resplendent and seemed to be made from divine jade. After arriving here, it caused people to feel as though they had arrived at the immortal realms. It was filled with a holy aura, causing people to be astonished. This was just a child, yet he had such a majestic immortal foundation, surpassing many experts who had cultivated their entire lives. This caused people to be shocked. Yi Fan's divine sense entered the immortal foundation and entered the origin of the light. With a thunderous boom, he entered a vast world that was exactly the same as the other side of the starry space. This was the scene of the ancient desolate lands on Earth. The mountain range was majestic, the terrain was vast and boundless. Ancient trees towered up into the sky, and all sorts of savage beasts ran about. This was the child's memories, and also the starting point of his sea of consciousness. Hence, this was the most important part of his spiritual sense. After that, endless sobbing sounds rang out in Yi Fan's ears. It sounded like the cries of millions of people, shaking the entire world. And this was only the beginning. The sobbing sounds grew louder and louder as the number of people increased. At the very end, it sounded like all the living beings in this vast world were crying. This was inconceivable and difficult to understand. Then, all types of strange sounds rang out, like the beating of a divine drum, like the wailing of a funeral bell, shaking the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Meanwhile, on the other side of the starry sky, all the towering mountains on Earth were shaking at the same time as if they were about to collapse. The mountains emitted all kinds of brilliant ancient runes, and the mountains and valleys were resonating. As Yi Fan walked forward, he could only see the various scenes of the great desolate era. He could hear the cries of countless living beings, but he could not see the figures of those people. The heavenly drum, the death knell, the sorrowful sound of all living beings. All of these interweaved together, mysterious and strange, causing one's hair to stand on end. In the end, when he arrived at the very depths, he heard all types of sacrificial noises. It was as if an ancient holy emperor was being buried. There were all types of signs and abnormalities that made one feel that something was off. His heart felt oppressed and heavy. What happened? How could there be such memories in this child's sea of consciousness? Why can't I see any humanoid creatures? Instead, there are quite a few savage beasts and divine birds lying on the ground. Yi Fan passed through with endless questions, but in the end, he didn't see this child's origins. The divine child seemed to have been born with knowledge, and only remembered the starting ground. Afterwards, there was a blank space and no one taught him. Then, there were some trivial matters that happened in the stone square over the past 100 years. During this time, he was sleeping, and there were many faults in his sea of consciousness. His origins actually didn't exist, and even this child himself didn't know. To be able to have his current performance and have this kind of vigilant mentality, it was all a type of innate intelligence. He didn't possess anything else, and it was unknown who sealed him. Yi Fan was astonished. If this child's memories weren't erased, then something special had happened that left a defect in his sea of consciousness. There was also a possibility that he didn't lack anything. This was how it was from the start, and this was his everything. It was just that he was too young and didn't leave behind any past imprints. That sacrificial sound and burial sound are very terrifying. Also, the boundless mountains and rivers on the other side of the starry sky have always appeared. This is the most suspicious part of his identity, and it's not easy to come to a conclusion. Although Yi Fan had some shocking conjectures in his heart, he lacked evidence and couldn't confirm them. He searched carefully in the immortal platform and found some scattered memories. Many of them were blurry scenes of the barbaric era on Earth, but there was a lack of humanoid creatures. In the end, he saw the boundless heavenly palace, but they were all fragments. It was as if it had been destroyed and declined, disappearing in a flash. It was a very small scene. The death of an important character. The decline of a grand divine dynasty. Yi Fan muttered to himself. This was the most important clue in the divine child's sea of consciousness. He thought of many things and stood silently in this place for a long time. His heart was heavy. This child's origins were too extraordinary, and it really wasn't easy to deal with him. After careful observation, Yifan confirmed that this child wasn't a holy spirit. As for what race he was, it was hard to say. He had a humanoid body, but he had the energy of a saint at such a young age. It was truly shocking, and it wasn't quite right to say that he was a human. He wasn't a true holy spirit of flesh and blood, and he wasn't a vicious creature either. This made Yifan sigh in relief, but he also felt somewhat apologetic towards this child. Now that the stone skin had been cut open, it was impossible to let him continue staying in the stone square. Yifan didn't plan to break open the immortal origin, and it was better to let him remain in a sealed state. Although there wasn't much evidence, all kinds of signs indicated that this child's origins were most likely heaven-defying. In the future, many unpredictable things might happen. Little fatty, stop struggling. I won't hurt you. Just sleep obediently, Yifan said. Of course, this time, he used his divine sense to transmit his message. Give Lori my *s. Godchild mumbled as he puffed his cheeks. Yifan really found it hard to guess what language this was. He had long since grasped the archaic divine language that was commonly used by all races, but this child's language had transcended this category, and it felt even more ancient. Thinking about it carefully, it truly made one's heart throb. Where did it originate from? Was it a language from an even more ancient era? Did he really come from Earth? Was there a period of time that was covered in dust and forgotten? Yifan muttered to himself. When he was still immortal, he was already very interested in the ancient anecdotes and secrets. In the Yellow Emperor's canon of internal medicine, there was a record. The ancient people, spring and autumn, were all 100 years old, but their movements never faltered. That was a mysterious piece of ancient history that was shrouded in a layer of fog. The last time he returned to Earth, he also didn't dig out any special secrets. Perhaps I should go back, Yifan muttered to himself. He didn't want to move rashly, fearing that he would bring the flames of war there. Today none of his enemies were good people, and even the quasi-emperor was about to appear, so he couldn't help but have many misgivings. A child that was cut out is comparable to a saint. This is too heaven-defying. Whose descendant is this? It's simply inconceivable. Heavens! Could it be that this is a divine fetus that was left in the human world, and has now come into being? Otherwise, how could it be so powerful? The people in the distance cried out in alarm. After so many years, Yifan returned to the stone square, and just like before, he caused a commotion. A living creature actually appeared when the stone was cut open. He was so young, yet he was so powerful. The divine child was chubby and chubby. He was fair and clean, and his large eyes were exceptionally spirited. He stared at Yifan, trying his best not to shrink back. He looked a bit stubborn and cute. Yifan pondered for a long time. How exactly should he deal with him? A few important figures from the Ji family surrounded him, and their faces were full of shock. Back then, when they dealt with this stone material, they were very careless. They never thought that a little ancestor would be buried here. This is a life form that was cut out from your Ji family. When I visit your clan's gate soon, treat it as a great gift, Yifan said after thinking for a moment. The child stared with his eyes wide open, and his mouth mumbled something. No one knew what he was saying. Who knows if you are a disaster or an innocent person? Since you've come into being, you are definitely a piece of meat that everyone wants to take a bite of. I'll send you to the Ji clan, and you will be protected. Have a good sleep. Yifan left with the little fatty he spoke of. Meanwhile, the entire divine city was in an uproar. This matter was not ordinary, and it immediately spread in all directions. The performance of the child that was born from the stone was too miraculous, and everyone couldn't help but be shocked. It triggered a huge commotion in the northern region, and then it quickly swept towards the central continent, Nanling Mountains, and other places. Even the saints from outside this region were shocked. They couldn't believe that there was such a heaven-defying divine child. Dao friend, please wait. When Yifan hurried towards the jade pool, someone shouted loudly from behind. When he turned around, he saw that it was the ancient race's great sage, Hunchuo, chasing after him. Do you need something? Yifan stopped and turned around to look behind him. The god of misfortune wiped away his sweat. It seemed like he had chased after him with all his might. After receiving the news, he was the first to rush over and find Yi Fan. "Dao friend Yi, I'm here to reunite with you." Hunchuo had a serious expression. "I'm not related to you, right? Do you think we look alike?" Yi Fan had a smile that wasn't a smile on his face. "Dao friend, you misunderstood. I'm here to reunite with the child you cut out. That is the child that my family lost over 1,000,000 years ago. Today, I'm here to reunite with him," Hunchuo said anxiously. Yi Fan was so angry that he was amused. "You really dare to say that? Is this your family's child? Why don't you ask him if he's willing to reunite with you? Also, look carefully, isn't this celestial source even older than you?" Within the celestial source, that child was currently staring with a pair of sparkling black eyes. He circulated his energy towards Hunchuo and muttered, "Extra hot gata pot. Look, he's calling me. This is the child that I left outside when I was muddle-headed when I was young. Meeting him today really makes my old heart feel good. I'm so moved that I'm crying." Great Sage Hunchuo's face didn't turn red at all as he spoke seriously. "How could you have such a child?" Yi Fan sneered. He wasn't afraid of him snatching. He beckoned him over, wanting to use him to further confirm the child's identity. Great Sage Hunchuo was a little hesitant. Although he was known as the god of misfortune, he was still afraid that Yi Fan, this killing god, would throw an emperor weapon at him. If that happened, he would be the one dying. He stood in the distance and listened to the child's dissatisfied muttering. Not long after, Hunchuo's expression changed. The more he listened to the child's muttering, the heavier his expression became. He said with a trembling voice, "How can such a language still exist in this world? Impossible." Finally, he couldn't endure the torment in his heart. After obtaining Yi Fan's approval, he sent out a strand of divine sense to observe the resplendent celestial platform of the child. When those sacrificial chants rang out, Great Sage Hunchuo's body trembled violently. Then, like a startled old rabbit, he leaped up 100 jong and ran away like a wisp of smoke. He was as panicked as a stray dog, and that expression was definitely not fake. "Hunchuo, isn't this your child? Hurry up and tell me the reason." Yi Fan carried the child and chased after him. "It's none of my business. That child of mine has already ascended to heaven. How is this my descendant? He's clearly an ancestor." Hunchuo ran like an old rabbit. Once he used his crazy pie ability, he was like the wind and lightning, making it a little strenuous for Yi Fan to chase after him. "Tell me where you came from. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Yi Fan approached and threatened him. "I advise you to hurry up and send this little ancestor away. Don't provoke him. There was once an ancient imperial family that went extinct because of this." Great Sage Hunchuo warned him solemnly. "Nonsense," Yi Fan lightly rebuked. The two of them, one fleeing and one chasing, actually directly arrived at the Jade Lake. This was also the original target of Yi Fan. Great Sage Hunchuo didn't wait for a report. With a swoosh, he rushed to the mountain gate and shouted with a hoarse voice, "Quickly prepare the Western Emperor Tower. A big one has come. Take out 2 or more Emperor weapons and send this child into the boundless cosmos. If not, a great calamity will befall us." Chapter 1529. After receiving the report, Yi Fan and Hun Tuo entered the Jade Lake one after another. Along the way, Great Sage Hun Tuo looked as if he had seen a ghost and didn't want to provoke that child. It is rumored that this is a taboo language. There are only a few records in the archaic historical records, but they have long been lost. Those who speak this language are all calamities that bring about the end of the world. In the past, there was once a great imperial family that provoked such a group of people. After fighting for half a day, blood flowed like a river, and they were completely wiped out. Great Sage Hunchuo told the truth. Then he mentioned the sacrificial voice, clearly telling Yi Fan that when the undying heavenly emperor passed away, there had been this kind of sacrificial voice, as well as the mournful cries of 10,000 races. However, it was not as grand as the burial sound recorded in the child's immortal platform. His divine sense was like a vast ocean striking the heavens, with the feeling of the entire world mourning together. It appeared through a child's sea of consciousness, and this in itself was enough to explain the problem. He looks like an ignorant child, But he might actually be the oldest living ancestor. He might have mutated, so it's best not to provoke him. Great Sage Hunchuo usually had a calm and carefree appearance. Wherever he went, he would decline. But today, he looked like he was declining, and his face was like a bitter gourd. The safest method is to banish it and activate the emperor weapon. Then, just like the funerals of the ancient emperors, send it into the void. Hunchuo suggested. Even someone like him had only seen some vague records in ancient texts, but he didn't know the specifics. He only knew that the sacrificial voice and the people who spoke that language couldn't be provoked. Otherwise, it would be a huge disaster. When the Undying Sky Emperor was buried, there was also a similar sacrificial chant, but this child's immortal platform is even more majestic? Yi Fan asked. I know what you want to say, but in this world, there will always be people and things that you can't predict. Don't delve too deeply into this child. Hurry up and let him go. After Hunta said all this solemnly, he got up and bid farewell. Yi Fan didn't make things difficult for him. After all, he didn't have much of a conflict with this old man. The Jade Lake was still the same. The mountains and rivers were beautiful, and there were trees and flowers everywhere. The fallen petals were in profusion, and a sweet fragrance assailed the nostrils. The illusory divine hall was suspended on the cliff, shrouded in hazy mist. The lakes were like pearls, and the towering ancient trees were swaying in the wind. It was a beautiful scene. Yi Fan saw the Jade Lake Holy Daughter again. Now, she had already become the master of this inheritance. She was still as elegant as ever, her beauty crowning the eastern wasteland. She was an exceptional beauty that was on par with Miaoi in the past. Her moon-white dress trailed behind her. She was graceful and elegant. She didn't put on any makeup, yet she could make all the beauties in the world pale in comparison. On her sparkling white face, her eyebrows were curved and her eyes were clear. There was a type of quick-wittedness to her beauty. Congratulations, Brother Yi, on your invincible journey. She smiled warmly as she congratulated him. Yi Fan. Lu Yi also came. There was a smile on her face, as well as tears. She was even more moved. Her old friend from the other side of the starry sky was the closest person to her. They talked for 4 hours in a majestic palace, recounting some of their experiences over the years. They felt the boundless power of time, and many things had happened. Yi Fan directly stated his purpose of coming. He wanted to see the 9-aperture immortal stone. Otherwise he would feel uneasy. He said, I don't know what you guys are planning, but once she comes out, she will most likely be invincible. Apart from those in the Forbidden Region, no one will be able to keep her in check. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter shook her head and said, She is a child of our Jade Lake. We've been preaching scriptures to her since she was young, and we've poured a lot of effort into her. Even someone with a heart of stone would be moved. Moreover, she is originally one with the Jade Lake, so you don't have to worry. She revealed an awkward expression and tactfully told Yi Fan not to worry. There was something difficult about this divine fetus, but she guaranteed that she wouldn't become a disaster. Beside the celestial pond, the immortality peach tree was still verdant. Its leaves were as green as agate, sparkling and translucent. All kinds of auspicious birds and beasts roamed around it. The 9 apertures on the divine stone were absorbing the essence of heaven and earth. Surging with vitality, Yi Fan stopped beside the pond and stared at the Stone King under the ancient tree. His heaven's eye was wide open, and he carefully looked through the stone wall. Inside the stone, there was a woman with a divine appearance and peerless style. Her flesh had taken shape, and she was sparkling and translucent. She could wake up at any time and break out of the stone. Brother Yi, don't worry. The Jade Lake has a sense of propriety. No matter how careless we are, we won't bring disaster to the world. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter's voice was gentle as she looked at the divine stone. Yi Fan's sharp senses sensed that there seemed to be some hidden secrets. It was different from what the Jade Lake Saint Lord had said in the past. The Holy Land was hiding many secrets and deceiving everyone. In the sky, primal chaos filled the air. An ancient pagoda was faintly discernible, floating up and down. It was the West Emperor Pagoda, cast from Immortal Tears green gold, guarding the entire Pure Land. Immortal Tears green gold was an immortal material. There were rumors in the world that it represented sad songs and tears. It was indeed so. It was said that even the West Emperor had spent half his life in misery and regret. In the Jade Pool, every talented woman seemed to have all kinds of regrets, and each had their own sad past. In the sky, a woman appeared, her face filled with endless sadness. She nodded at Yi Fan, and entered the area where the West Emperor Pagoda was located. Yi Fan bowed deeply. It was Yang Yi, the lover of the fifth generation's Heaven's Origin ancestor Zhang Lin. It seemed that she had once again confirmed the ominous omen of the immortal tier's green gold pagoda, leaving behind regret and sadness. What is the relationship between Great Emperor Wu Shi and the Jade Lake? Yi Fan suddenly asked. That black dog should know, the Jade Lake Holy Daughter said. It's gone missing. Yi Fan felt helpless. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter said. It is as you have guessed, and it is not false. I only confirmed it in recent years. The ancient sage sealed in the celestial pond has already come out, and told me about the past. Great Emperor Wu Shi really came from the Jade Lake. Yi Fan suddenly turned around. He had only asked casually. He didn't expect the other party to reveal the truth. Yes, Great Emperor Wu Shi is the son of the West Emperor. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter said calmly. Her words shocked Yi Fan like a sudden clap of thunder. This was really shocking. One sect and two emperors couldn't be broken? No, someone had already broken through the obstacles and done it. The West Emperor's own son didn't stop at the peak because of the suppression of the Supreme Emperor's path. Instead, he defied the heavens and broke through, which was why there was the one and only Wu Shi. If this news were to spread, it would definitely cause earth-shattering waves and shake the world. Even the universe would be shaken. Who said that the Great Emperor's son couldn't prove the way? Who said that one sect had no two emperors? No one had been able to break the curse since ancient times. They didn't know that it had been broken by Wu Shi long ago. This was a shocking event. An enormous wave that was sufficient to rewrite some common knowledge in the history of cultivation. It shook the heavens and the earth, shook the ancients and dazzled the contemporaries. A legend has been broken, an unprecedented miracle. Yi Fan said with a sigh. It was said that the master of the Jade Lake couldn't marry, but it was unexpected that the West Emperor had left behind a son. If this news were to spread, it would naturally cause a huge uproar. Emperor Shi had a sad love story. He personally saw off his lover, and then he sealed his only son. He was alone for the rest of his life. In the end, he widely accepted disciples in the Jade Lake and established a sect, the Jade Lake Holy Maiden said. She didn't hide anything. I see. The powerful and beautiful West Emperor, as a great emperor, also had a sad story. It was not hard to imagine how sad it was for a great emperor to send his lover away with his own hands. Yi Fan didn't know what happened back then, but he could imagine the sorrow. The West Emperor must have had endless sorrow and regret. Wu Shi was sealed when he was very young. He was born in a dark era. Everything couldn't be helped. He needed a prince to suppress the darkness, so he unsealed him. From then on, he became an undefeated legend that shook the world. How strong is Great Emperor Wu Shi? Yi Fan respected this great emperor, and wanted to know everything about him. So strong that it can't be measured. This was the evaluation of the Jade Lake. Yi Fan understood that a great emperor couldn't be looked up to and couldn't be measured. He could only estimate it from his battle strength before he became a great emperor. When he was born, auspicious energy rushed into the 9 heavens above his head and shook the 4 seas. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter said a shocking fact. Yi Fan was shocked. He immediately took out the white and clean baby and stared at the little guy in the divine source, making his hair stand on end. However, the little guy was quite courageous. After a moment of timidity, he stared at him and muttered nonstop. Unwending ma senfei la gu nu. Lu Yi couldn't help but exclaim after asking how the little guy came to be. It was really shocking. What was the difference between Great Emperor Wu Shi and this little fatty when he was young? Yi Fan asked. Why do you say he's fat? Children are like this when they are young. This is cute. Lu Yi couldn't help but pick up the immortal source and rub its head from a distance. I don't know the specifics. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter shook her head. Great Emperor Wu Shi lost his father when he was young, and was sealed by his mother. He didn't grow up with his parents, so outsiders didn't know much about him. Without a doubt, His father was a saint physique. If there weren't any accidents, he had most likely achieved great success. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the West Emperor who had already achieved Tao? The blood of two great supreme beings flowed within his body. One didn't need to think to know that he was definitely heaven-defying. In reality, the innate saint physique Tao embryos unrivaled might had long been proven. Under Lu Yi's consolation, the divine child was very obedient. He obediently squinted his eyes and mumbled a few sentences. "Little fatty, you can understand us, so don't say these ancient words," Yifan said. "Scoundrel, scoundrel, scoundrel, scoundrel." The divine child transmitted his divine sense and continuously shouted the word scoundrel 4 times. The Jade Lake Holy Daughter and Lu Yi immediately laughed. Only Yifan threatened, "Little fatty, if you dare speak randomly again, I'll sell you into the Origin ancient mine and let the strange existence there study you thoroughly. You're the one who's fat." This time he shouted in a childish voice. It was actually not the ancient language, but the present world's language. Yifan was startled. Then he realized that this child had woken up in the Ji family's stone square for many years. He could sense everything outside, so he must have learned the human language a long time ago. When the time comes, I'll take you and Zhang Wenchang back to the other side of the galaxy to take a look. Yifan turned around and said, "Really, really?" Lu Yi's voice trembled as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Really?" Yifan gave her a definite answer. "I want to go too. That's where I was born," the divine child shouted. Yifan was startled. This little fatty suddenly spoke too much, and how could he be sure? Then he suddenly realized that he had underestimated this child. He could sense other people's emotions and had captured Lu Yi's divine sense ripples. He clearly knew what kind of place it was. "Little fatty, you're not being honest." Yifan picked him up to prevent him from exploring the agitated and defenseless Lu Yi's sea of consciousness. Then Yifan asked a question that he had always wanted to know but never got an answer to. What's going on with the Jade Lake's old land? What happened in the past? Chapter 1530. Some inauspicious things happened. The Jade Lake Holy Lady's expression was gloomy. She didn't say too much, not willing to divulge anything. One could see that there were great secrets hidden within. In the end, Yifan said his goodbyes. He gave a piece of Tao source to Lu Yi, and then left with the divine child. "Little fatty, if you stare at me again, be careful or I'll stew you," Yifan threatened him. This child's cheeks puffed out, his face full of unwillingness, but he also looked a bit scared. He wanted to run, yet he couldn't, wanted to fight, yet he couldn't win, leaving him panting with rage. "Why aren't you saying anything? Use your subconscious. Who knows, you might be able to recall your true origins," Yifan said. The child gave him a look with his large eyes, and then ignored him, clearly inwardly angry. Yifan laughed, feeling that this little fellow was quite interesting. "I hate you." This pink jade-carved child couldn't take it anymore. When he saw that Yifan was always teasing him, his arms and legs flailed about, wishing to struggle free. "You better not move recklessly. If you accidentally break the immortal source, you can just wait to cry. There's no way to seal you inside anymore," Yifan said. The desolate northern region was uninhabited for hundreds of thousands to millions of li. If he continued like this, he might not encounter a single creature for the rest of his life. The scarlet earth was boundless, not a blade of grass growing. This was the northern region's current situation. Yifan headed in a certain direction. The closer he got, the more stifling he felt. There was a type of grand natural law fluctuation. This was the direction of the absolute beginning restricted region. When he was still 800 or so li from that place, he already sensed a type of formless order power that made one's heart tremble. Yifan flew into the heavens, gazing into that direction. The ancient mine was deep and serene, taking in and sending out the essence of the sun and moon. An aura that left even the supreme beings of endless time horrified surged, existing forever with the world. Now the great restricted regions all showed signs of reviving. Not long ago, he heard that there was a flute-playing woman who moved through the sky in absolute beginning ancient mine, but no one dared approach. Yifan also stopped here, not wishing to get too close. He only wanted to come to the outer regions after so many years, see if there were any special changes. The majestic palace once again stood tall on the earth. Inside the absolute beginning forbidden area, there were some majestic palaces that were boundlessly huge. Apparently, some sacrificial temples had been unearthed. Origin Ancient Mind's abnormalities were not far from truly appearing in the world. Yifan did not stay for long. Anything could happen in this place. He quickly left and arrived at a desert 20 to 30,000 miles away. Moonlight scattered down, covering the entire earth in a hazy haze. The scarlet red earth and stone appeared extremely desolate, without the slightest bit of vitality. Suddenly, at the limits of the boundless great earth, strands of white light appeared, soaring into the sky, flying towards the horizon, about to enter the green darkness in the blink of an eye. Yifan instantly soared into the sky. Right now, he possessed the world's fastest speed. A single thought able to move the world, quickly arriving in the heavens above. However, he was still a step too late. He could only see a few white figures disappear. They were just too fast, extremely faintly discernible. They were as ethereal as immortals, disappearing into the darkness. Jade Lake Flying Immortal. Back then, he and the Black Emperor had used this to find a place. As for Jade Lake Flying Immortal, there had never been a precise explanation since ancient times. There would occasionally be flying immortal scenes under the night moon. But no one knew what was going on. It was hazy from the distance, indistinct from up close, disappearing in an instant. Legend had it that this was an ancient desolate afterimage, a reflection of endless years ago, a replay of the ancient past. The old land under the darkness of night was extremely peaceful, not a bit of sound to be heard. The moonlight was bright and pure, illuminating the scarlet red crushed rocks and other things. Yifan headed in a certain direction. He reached out with his powerful divine senses, finding a dried-up well under the sea of red sand. It released an aura of the desolate past. The well was made of jade, a large rock pressed down on top. When it was removed, the starlight and moonlight in the sky immediately poured down like water, scattering into the well. It was devouring the essence of heaven and earth, replenishing the divine might in Jade Lake's old land. Yifan disappeared with a flash, entering the well. It was unknown just how many zhang he descended, but when he reached the bottom he walked diagonally forward, finally walking out from the bottom of a dried-up great lake. He knew that he had truly entered Jade Lake's old land. This was a pure land isolated from the rest of the world. The spiritual essence was thick to the point where it couldn't be dispersed, but the grass and ancient trees here were all dead. Their leaves were bare, and there was absolutely no life force. There were many withered trees that were terrifyingly thick, towering high into the sky. They were as grand as mountain peaks, but unfortunately, there wasn't a single leaf or strand of life force. The surroundings were quiet and lifeless. This was originally a world filled with the fragrance of flowers and the singing of birds, but now, it had become a barren land. There was a strange aura about it. This place didn't lack water, and along the way, they also saw one or two spiritual springs, but there was no life force. The fish and plants were all pretty much dead. It was completely desolate. Palaces and pavilions appeared, but quite a few of them had collapsed onto the ground. The grand buildings had now become ruins, left for later generations to pay homage to. Finally, immortal energy became hazy up ahead, the great mountains faintly discernible. Large intact grand palaces appeared, towering in the clouds, resting on cliffs. This was simply like an immortal realm, making one yearn for it. Unfortunately, it was still lacking. There were no plants, and the silver waterfall had also dried up, becoming a land of death. We arrived here again. Yifan said softly. Back then, when he barged into this place with the Black Emperor, they were left in shock for a long time. Now he seriously suspected that the dried-up well was actually a dog-hole dug out by the Black Emperor in the past. In this world, it might be the only one who understood Jade Lake the best. After all, Wuxia came from this place. Yifan walked forward, arriving at the innermost depths of Jade Lake's important land. Life force suddenly appeared. Throughout the entire old land, only this place surged with auspicious energy, the most brilliant. From the distance, multicolored light shone in all directions, auspicious colors surging. It was like the beginning of life. There was an immortal pond here. The past Jade Lake's name was derived from it. In this place, The grass was abundant, the cliffs green. In addition, there was a silver waterfall that poured down, rumbling with noise. It was extremely magnificent. Together with the palaces and pavilions, it looked lively and auspicious, otherworldly and natural. It was extremely magnificent. There is finally sound, no longer lifeless. However, after arriving at this place, Yi Fan's expression became even more serious, becoming serious and on guard. He wouldn't forget the true scene he saw in the past. At the very center of Jade Lake was an immortal lake. Auspicious light surged, mist hazy, flowing with brilliant colors. It was simply like a land of ascension to immortality. By the lakeside, there were all types of strange flowers and grasses, their fragrance assailing the nostrils, refreshing the mind, making one feel intoxicated. It was as if they arrived in a paradise, walking into an immortal domain. Yi Fan wouldn't forget everything he experienced when he jumped into the lake with the Black Emperor. The bottom of the lake was filled with female corpses, all of them beautiful faces, all of them Jade Lake's disciples. Now he already had strength comparable to the great sage, even more so coming with an emperor weapon. That was why he wanted to get to the bottom of this, figure out what exactly happened here. Several black figures floated past, drawing out a few water lines in the water. Yi Fan opened his heavenly eyes and saw clearly that those were several corpses, all of them wearing pure white dresses, not rotting even after so many years. Yi Fan brought out the divine child again, letting him sense if there was any special aura here. He believed that this child's bloodline power was special, perhaps he could make some unusual discoveries. Little fatty, carefully sense it. You're the one who's fat. The divine child was extremely dissatisfied with this title. In reality, he really wasn't fat. Children his age were all chubby and chubby. This child of mysterious origins, born to be a saint, was panting with rage, glaring at him with large eyes, confronting him. However, when Yi Fan threw him into the lake, after seeing the female corpses, he immediately cried out in alarm, immediately becoming well-behaved. Yi Fan brought him into the water. Even though this wasn't the first time he saw this, his scalp still went numb. At the bottom of the lake, there were corpses one after another, densely packed. This was a burial pit. With just a rough look, he discovered that there were several hundred people. The heart of the lake was completely filled, piled up. It was extremely terrifying. Those lotus arms, those slender jade legs, were still flickering with luster, but their bodies were stiff, without the slightest sign of life. All of the women had disheveled hair, their complexions pale. They wore white hemp clothes with the Jade Lake's imprint, their hair like snakes, dancing in disarray. In the dim lake bottom, it made one's hair stand on end. And now, Yi Fan was comparable to the great sage, coming here to investigate, so he couldn't stop. He personally moved the corpses away, cleaning up the heart of the lake. There were no water plants, no fish, only ancient corpses. During this time, a few women suddenly opened their eyes, releasing a terrifying radiance. The divine child was so scared that he almost fainted. Yi Fan, on the other hand, carefully observed, but unfortunately, they had all turned into shady people, without their past memories. They were just corpses in the mouths of mortals. These kinds of existences were naturally nothing to him, so they were all disposed of. Yi Fan discovered the mouth of a spring at the bottom of the lake. The water of the celestial pond was surging out from there. His heart was immediately moved. It was rumored that the immortal tears made in gold was found in this lake, and in the end, it was forged into the West Emperor Tower. And before the Jade Lake moved, that emperor weapon was also suppressed in this pond, causing this place to be shrouded in dense fog. Yi Fan used force, lifting up a few limestone slabs at the bottom of the lake, causing the mouth of the spring to immediately enlarge, turning into a deep black hole, large enough for a person to enter. Can I not go in? The divine child was afraid. Little fatty, you are a natural saint. How can you be so timid? You must have been frightened. Yi Fan teased him. I'll fight you to the death. The fair and clean little fatty, riding on the immortal source, forcefully rammed towards him. You better behave. Yi Fan brought him directly into the mouth of the spring, deep into the ground. When they went deep, the water was even sweeter, essence energy flowed, full of divine splendor. This was an underground lake, Not very big. What made one's heart jump was that there were similarly many corpses, their cultivation extraordinary when they were alive. Their faces were all very beautiful. The divine child immediately became obedient, not making a sound, his little face showing some fear. Yi Fan's expression was grave. He pulled out the emperor's sword, held it in his hand, and carefully searched. In the end, there was still not much of a harvest, and he once again drilled into the underground spring. Just like this, Yi Fan went a full 7,000 zhang underground, and even saw 7 layers of lakes. There were many corpses on all of them. Especially the 7th layer, there were some saint corpses. Finally, after entering the 8th layer, his hair stood on end. 8 or 9 corpses seemed to be swimming, all of them saints, even the great sage, the divine source shattered on the ground. Is this a portion of Jade Pool's past resources? Because of some unknown reason, the divine source broke. They actually all died here. Yi Fan was shocked. In the past, the West Emperor Pagoda suppressed the immortal pond, naturally to protect this place, at the same time ensuring the safety of the resources. Who would have thought that even so, a portion of Jade Pool's resources still suffered a calamity? What happened? Yi Fan was incredibly bewildered. When he arrived at the mouth of the spring, it became even more serene and dark. Only he had the heaven's origin eye. He had long become a blind person here. The answer should be in the 9th layer. Yi Fan took out the green copper cauldron, hanging it above his head, his left hand carrying the unwilling little fatty, his right hand holding the emperor's sword, sinking into the spring. Chapter 1531. The water of the dark spring was clear, and multicolored light could no longer be seen dancing about. However, Yi Fan instinctively knew that the water quality was much higher. It's comparable to the divine spring of the ancient desolate forbidden land. No wonder the name of the Jade Pool shook the world. Many great sects came to ask for water. The water quality of this spring was rare, comparable to the divine spring of the various great life forms. This kind of water, regardless of whether it was used to refine medicine or drink, had divine effects. It could increase one's lifespan and was a supreme treasure. However, as soon as he entered the 9th layer, Yi Fan felt a majestic aura. His body felt like it was going to explode, making him feel incomparably uncomfortable. This lake was extremely large, spanning several dozen li. The green copper cauldron shone with sparkling light. Even with its defense, it was still like this. One could imagine how dangerous this place was. Yi Fan propped up the golden sacred domain, protecting the child at his heart. The aura of a great emperor. In just an instant, Yi Fan realized why it was like this. This place had the power of an ancient great emperor. And there were things they left behind. That was why there was such a terrifying fluctuation. Only this level of divine might could make the green copper cauldron shine, make the imperial sword tremble, and defend on its own. The killing intent was bone-chilling, making one tremble. When the Jade Pool moved, most of the ancient divine stones carved with formation patterns were moved away. This place couldn't be an imperial formation. "Ayo Bonnie, you spicy melon!" The divine child cried out in a small voice. "What are you saying?" Yi Fan asked. The little fatty pouted and wiped away his tears. He was actually about to cry. In the end, he was still a child, and his temperament was very simple. "Don't cry, I'll hide you." "No, I want to see what's inside." The little fatty was extremely stubborn. He wiped away his tears while secretly looking forward. There were clearly many dangers, but Yi Fan still felt like laughing. He shook his head, collected his emotions, and walked forward. Next, every step he took gave him a feeling of heaven and earth collapsing. Even the imperial weapon was trembling, making it a bit difficult for him to endure. The pressure pervaded the air, killing gods and Buddhas. They finally arrived at the end of the immortal lake. There was a small pond that was separated from the immortal lake, the water sparkling and shining, supporting a barrier of light. A woman with disheveled hair sat within, covering her true appearance. The light barrier was next to a stone wall, forming a small celestial pond there. Perhaps it could be called the 10th layer celestial pond, but its circumference was only 1 zhang. Queen Mother of the West. Yi Fan turned pale with fright. This was a flawless woman with no injuries on her body. She wasn't like the Grand Emperor whose powerful spiritual essence scattered after being shattered, which was why she was incomparably oppressive. Even with the emperor weapon in hand, he felt an incomparable pressure. Yi Fan was shocked. He didn't expect that the upheaval of the Jade Pool was related to the West Empress Mother. Was she the one who founded the Jade Pool? Was it also because of her that the Jade Pool almost ended? In the small spring pond, that woman was vivid and lifelike. Divine laws flowed through her body. Even though there was still a few li between them, the pressure she gave off was suffocating. A wave of strange aura pervaded the air from the West Empress Mother's body. It made one's heart palpitate, making one wonder if she had truly died. Suddenly, Yi Fan felt a wave of ice-cold killing intent. It was as if he saw a pair of eyes open amidst the woman's messy hair. It was extremely intimidating. Yi Fan simply didn't dare believe his own eyes. That woman opened her eyes? How was this possible? The West Empress had already died tens of thousands of years ago. Everyone in the Jade Pool knew that she had passed away in meditation, so how could she still be alive? In an instant, that terrifying gaze disappeared. It was extremely unreal. Was it an illusion, or did it really happen? He couldn't help but mutter to himself. He felt a chill run down his spine. Ghost! The divine child shouted loudly, kicking his calves. Unfortunately, the space inside the immortal source was limited, so his face turned pale. Yi Fan's heart jumped, and he decisively pulled him back. He felt more and more that this place was strange and terrifying, making him feel waves of uneasiness. He didn't expect that even with the Emperor weapon in hand, it would still be so dangerous. In the darkness of the immortal lake, shadows could be seen everywhere, as though something was swimming across the water. It looked even more terrifying, and only that small pond was shining with light. What did you see? Yi Fan asked. I saw her smiling at me. The divine child's face turned pale as he spoke with a trembling voice. Nonsense. Even my origin heavens, I didn't see her smiling. I only saw her opening her eyes. How did you see it? Yi Fan lightly berated. It's true, I saw her smiling. That face was very beautiful, but it was very pale, without any color at all. The divine child insisted. He also said that he didn't see the woman opening her eyes. After Yi Fan heard this, his spine turned cold. Why did the two of them see different scenes? Who was the one who saw wrongly? He didn't say anything and directly looked at the little fatty's immortal platform, reading his memories. As expected, he saw a blurry and pale face, as though it was right in front of him, standing right in front of him. Yi Fan's heart trembled violently. He endured the urge to berate. He felt that this place was even colder than before. Was it really haunted? But to cultivators, this saying was too laughable. At their cultivation realm, how could they still be afraid of ghosts? What was that? It was merely a field energy formed from yin qi. It was far from being comparable to a saint. That woman had emperor-level fluctuations, and was at the bottom of the Jade Lake. She should be the West Emperor. What was going on? Why did such a strange thing happen? It gave off an ominous feeling. Also, why did different people see different scenes? Was everything an illusion? Or could it be that there was something strange about this emperor corpse that could affect one's primordial spirit? Yi Fan's expression flickered. He truly didn't know what had happened for such a strange thing to happen. He opened his heavenly eye, wanting to get to the bottom of this. The great emperor was too mysterious and terrifying. The West Emperor's face was covered in messy strands of hair. Her graceful figure was half covered by her messy hair. He actually couldn't see through her. At this moment, only that blurry and pale face could be used as a reference. He couldn't see anything else. Yi Fan opened his heavenly eye wide. His eyes were about to explode, but he still couldn't see through it. Moreover, that corpse actually emitted waves of chaotic mist, making it even more terrifying. Suddenly, Yi Fan felt waves of coldness again. The green copper cauldron was blazing brilliantly. The killing sword trembled slightly, and the sword radiance flickered nonstop. The immortal slaughtering diagram on the body of the sword was dripping with blood, as if it had truly come to life. In a trance, a pair of cold eyes opened again, and there seemed to be a slight sigh. It was incomparably mournful, full of sorrow and grief. This was a contradictory scene. Those eyes were so cold, and the sorrow that echoed from the sigh was so sad. The two clashed, and it was very strange. Help, she's throwing herself at me. The little fatty kicked his legs in a frenzy, his face full of fear. If he could escape, he would have already run behind Yi Fan's butt. It was really strange. Different people felt different things, and Yi Fan didn't even know which was real and which was fake. He fell back again, and then searched the divine child's sea of consciousness. He discovered a pale and blurry face right in front of him, revealing a demonic smile. His hair was loose, and it was extremely frightening. Even he sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder the little fatty was scared, and didn't dare to be stubborn anymore, asking him to save him. Standing far enough away, Yi Fan and the little fatty gradually calmed down. However, this place became more and more gloomy, as if they had fallen into the underworld. "I'm scared and I want to leave." The little fatty finally softened, and said with great embarrassment, "I'll put you away first," said Yi Fan. "Then, I'll look a little longer," he said with his mouth puckered. Tears were about to flow out, and he wasn't willing to let Yi Fan put him away. Yi Fan was speechless. This little fatty was quite stubborn. He was clearly scared to death, but he still wanted to compete with him, and wanted to persevere. "Why is there another person over there?" The little fatty blinked his large eyes, and said with a trembling voice. Yi Fan looked over, and he truly felt his scalp go numb. There was an extra shadow there, and it released waves of mist, making the small pond appear many times more terrifying. "There's another ghost. How did he come out?" The divine child said softly. He wanted nothing more than to run away and never come back. The mist was quite special. It surrounded the emperor-level corpse, and even the heaven's origin I couldn't see through it. Only when it gradually dispersed did it slowly enter the depths of his eyes. There was a bloody arm that was suffused with a greenish-purple color. Some long golden hair grew out, and it was extremely dazzling. There was a wave of bone-chilling coldness that pressed into one's bones, and it truly was sinister and bone-chilling. Yi Fan was immediately stupefied. After looking carefully again, his expression changed greatly, and his pupils rapidly contracted. It was as if he had seen a malicious spirit. There was a wound on that arm, and bright red blood flowed out. It made his heart pound violently, and there was a type of Tao law that resonated with him, producing a type of connection. The blood of a great completion saint physique. Yi Fan immediately thought of this possibility because the more he looked at it, the more he could feel a type of resonance. It passed through the emperor's aura and the green copper cauldron's lustrous green light, making his blood boil. How did this arm come out? Yi Fan walked a few steps forward, and he couldn't help but be amazed. In the end, he discovered that the small pond was connected to a hidden cave, and the arm rushed out along with the waves. Great completion saint physique. This is Great Emperor Wusher's father, the West Emperor's partner? Yi Fan was tongue-tied and he couldn't say anything else. What he saw today was too shocking. He saw the corpses of two supreme beings at the same time. And this might be the root cause of the Jade Pool's upheaval. He stared blankly for a long time. And only after a long time did he come back to his senses after the divine child's reminder. Yi Fan changed his direction, and he looked towards the small pond and the cave. He wanted to see the true appearance of Great Emperor Wusher's father. The cave was very hidden, and the angle changed again and again. There was actually an ancient coffin inside, but it had already been opened. A corpse was lying outside, and its arm was leaning on the West Emperor. Why is there some golden hair on its body? It was obvious that it had grown later, as if something inauspicious had happened, resulting in this kind of change. The entire corpse was wrapped in wisps of mist, and it couldn't be seen clearly. However, it could be seen that there was a crack on the forehead, and there was a fatal wound. It seemed that its primordial spirit had been scattered back then. What happened? Yi Fan was puzzled, and he stared at the two corpses in a daze. He was very far away, but he still felt as if his body had been smashed to pieces. Moreover, when the divine blood in his body faced the great completion saint physique, it involuntarily surged. Their similar physiques caused them to resonate. Suddenly, as his blood boiled, an inconceivable scene appeared in front of Yi Fan's eyes, as if it was really happening in front of him. That was a heroic man. His eyebrows were like swords reaching his temples, and his eyes were as deep as the sea. He was robust and imposing, and just by standing there, the sun, moon, and stars in the sky all lost their splendor. It was as if he was the ruler of this entire world. He stood under the heavens, overlooking all directions. However, right now he was extremely tired. From time to time, waves of green and purple energy would emerge from his body, especially around his forehead. Strand after strand of golden hair drilled out from the surface of his body. I can't accompany you as you grow old. Let me free myself and send me on my way. He turned around and spoke to an exceptional beauty who similarly made the sun, moon, and stars lose their splendor. There was an indescribable helplessness and reluctance. The white-clothed beauty's face was full of grief. Tears tumbled down, and she was incomparably resentful. She forcefully clenched his thick and wide palm. Even if our child cannot become an immortal, he can still establish a new celestial court and rule the rise and fall of heaven and earth. At the last moment, when this man mentioned his child, his face was full of pride and confidence. He was brilliant and dazzling. The water waves rushed over, and the scene was temporarily broken. Yi Fan's heart was full of shock. Chapter 1532. What happened in the past? Yi Fan was in a daze. The scene he saw just now was very strange and shocking. After a long time, the scene just now was replayed in his mind. He felt that it was strange, and there were many things he couldn't understand. In the end, he sighed softly and thought about the last words of that saint physique. A few words shocked him. Establish the celestial court again. More than one person wanted to do this. What was the special meaning behind it? There was no need to elaborate on Dizun. As for the undying heavenly emperor, he was worshipped by all races and ruled the myriad realms. Although he didn't say it explicitly, it was probably this path. In addition, some powerful paragons also had such a wish when they were alive. For example, Emperor Qing wanted to establish the celestial court, but in the end he failed to succeed. And now this saint physique also said the same thing. He felt that great Emperor Wushi would establish the celestial court again. Other than the love and hope for his child, this was enough to explain some problems in itself. It seems that the re-establishment of the celestial court is of great importance. Dizun naturally chose to do this back then for a great reason. Yi Fan muttered to himself. He thought of the Yuhua God dynasty. They wanted to ascend. Based on this, wouldn't the ancient heaven be even more terrifying and majestic? The mythological era was too long ago and confusing. It was said that Dizun was the founder of the ancient heaven, but it was hard to say in recent times. The fog was rising. 100,000 years had passed, but Wushi didn't re-establish the celestial court. Could it be that he chose the former and truly became an immortal? After calming down, Yi Fan thought of this problem again. Wushi's father was so confident. Not only did he dote on and recognize his child's potential, but he also saw some of the future. 80,000 years ago, a vast fluctuation erupted from the Purple Mountain. Did Wushi become an immortal, or did he turn into ashes? Until now, it was hard to say. This great emperor's name shook ancient history. He was worshipped by the entire world. His combat strength looked down on the past, present, and future. He looked down on the ancient heavens. His whereabouts were the most eye-catching. Unfortunately, no one could see it, and no one could explain it clearly. There was only one sentence left in the world. Who is the peak at the end of the immortal path? Wushi's Tao becomes empty. If I can't achieve immortality, then I'll re-establish the celestial court. Yi Fan said to himself. This really was a great boldness that made one sigh with admiration. The ripples calmed down. He once again formed a connection with the scarlet blood, and the scene appeared again. He saw a peerless beauty with white clothes fluttering in the wind. She had a mournful expression on her face as she carried a corpse. She crossed millions and millions of stellar streams, and then she slammed her palm forward. Then everything was destroyed. Yi Fan finally witnessed the attack of a great emperor. It was so direct and destroyed everything. Nothing could be seen anymore. What entered his eyes were scenes of heaven and earth splitting apart. Everything was destroyed. Finally, he saw a huge bronze plaque at the edge of the universe that had been split in half. Nothing could be heard, and nothing could be seen. Emperor, she shattered everything, as if he wanted to destroy the rules of heaven and earth and re-establish the hope of immortality. The divine chains of heaven and earth's order broke, and then there was eternal darkness. Yi Fan was endlessly bewildered. He didn't understand the final result, and he had endless thoughts. His mood was complicated as he silently stood there. After who knew how much time had passed, peace was restored to this world. Emperor, she held a child's hand, leaving behind a gentle and graceful figure. She carried loneliness and sorrow as she left into the distance. That child was extremely quiet, not crying or making a fuss as he followed. Inadvertently, he turned around to take a look. With a hurried glance, one could see the true appearance of the young wuxia. He looked like he was 2 or 3 years old. His black hair fell over his shoulders, and his eyes were bright. He looked like he was carved from jade. Even though he was young, there was a type of wisdom that didn't match his age. This is the great Emperor Wuxia when he was young. Yi Fan revealed a look of shock. This was the first time he saw his true appearance. Even though he was a child, it still left him deeply shocked. Without a doubt, Emperor Shi sealed Wuxia. Only many tens of thousands of years later, when this world needed him to come into being, did he reappear. From then on, there was a supreme being legend. I want to beat him up. Within the immortal source, the little fatty said. Yi Fan was astonished. He didn't expect him to also see these scenes. You're jealous, right? You notice that he looks more heroic than you and isn't as chubby as you, right? I'm not fat at all. The little fatty was extremely angry. Yi Fan would always use this to talk about things, and it made him feel extremely unresigned. Then why do you want to beat him up? Is it because you feel a bit guilty? Is it because you feel like he's stronger than you? Yi Fan said with a smile. Nonsense, I just have a feeling that I really want to beat him up. The divine child muttered. Was this the natural hostility between a divine child and an immortal seed? Yi Fan couldn't help but laugh. They had never met before. Yet he was already like this just from seeing a scene. Not long after, the copper cauldron floated above Yi Fan's head. He held the emperor's sword in his hand, and he tried his best to get closer. He wanted to see everything thoroughly. There were no longer any abnormalities with the great completion saint physique and Western emperor. Only that kind of emperor-level aura made one's body feel like it was going to shatter, and one couldn't truly get close. The fluctuations spread in all directions. There were divine patterns engraved here, and it was actually personally carved by Wuxia. There were also jade pool inscriptions that proved Western emperor's identity. The jade pool moved in the last 20 to 30,000 years. Something must have happened during these tens of thousands of years. Yi Fan couldn't get any closer. He stared at the primal chaos mist and other things, wanting to see everything clearly. He discovered that there was nothing abnormal. Wanting to live his parents? He looked at the words left behind by great Emperor Wuxia, and his heart was shaken. This was truly heaven-defying. Western Emperor himself was a great emperor, but even he couldn't do anything. Did Wuxia want to do this? This should only be his hope. Yi Fan shook his head. He didn't believe that he could do it. Otherwise, after so many tens of thousands of years had passed, there wouldn't be just 2 corpses. Moreover, in this era, if Wuxia hadn't become an immortal, he himself would have already passed away in meditation. Finally, Yi Fan's mind moved, and he saw a corner of copper material. It was a fragment of some kind of artifact, and it couldn't enter the light screen. There was still some distance between it and the 2 corpses. What is that? Yi Fan was astonished, and he felt a strange fluctuation. This place was extremely quiet, and the area around that piece of copper material was very gloomy. It was as if there were streaks of black shadows streaking past, and it was extremely eerie. It was as if that place was connected to the netherworld. It was unknown how much effort Yi Fan used to see through it with his heavenly eye, but after dispersing strands of black mist, he stared at that corner weapon remnant. In a daze, it was as if he heard the cries of tens of thousands of malicious spirits. Moreover, in that instant, it was as if he had arrived at another space-time. Blood rain poured down, and yellow whirlwinds blew wildly between heaven and earth. Ghost. Divine child shouted. Little fatty, be a bit more obedient. Don't act so rashly, you'll scare people to death. Yi Fan knocked on the immortal source to warn him. Yi Fan used the army symbol formula to bring over that piece of remnant material. It was extremely difficult, and his entire body felt like it was going to split apart. It was because there were emperor corpses in front of them, and it really was too difficult for them to move closer. The green copper cauldron shone, protecting his body from collapsing. The immortal sword trembled, the dark red sword body dripping with blood. However, it wasn't to kill, but rather for self-protection. What kind of thing was this? Yi Fan brought it closer, but he didn't touch it. He felt a bone-chilling sensation. This piece that was black and carried a bit of bronze green was extremely sinister. It's as if it's connected to a 10,000-year-old ice house, bone-chilling cold. The little fatty shivered even through the immortal source, all of the fine hairs on his body standing on end. Yi Fan also felt like it was connected to the 9 netherworlds, sinister and terrifying. The murderous energy seeped into one's bones. This is an emperor artifact fragment. After carefully inspecting it, he couldn't help but be shocked. He carefully observed it, and then he thought of the scene where Western Emperor's final palm smashed down, splitting heaven and earth, only leaving behind a broken horizontal board. It seemed like the material was similar. Someone didn't give up, coming here and opening the Emperor's coffin. In the end, it self-destructed, and the originally broken Emperor artifact even more so shattered? Yi Fan was astonished, but he wasn't sure if this was the truth. Of course, it could also be that a corner of the great sage's injured body's wound was forced out. After all, he didn't see it, so he couldn't say for sure. Was the great completion divine body cursed? At the final moment, even Western Emperor was helpless, unable to cure it. It truly is terrifying. As a divine body, Yi Fan naturally cared a lot about this. In the end he left, not obtaining any more benefits. This Horn Emperor artifact fragment was extremely strange. The Tao patterns inside had all been erased, and there was no divine power left. There was only a deep coldness left. Yi Fan wanted to activate it, but he discovered that apart from its sturdiness, there wasn't much special power. In the end he threw it here. That was because he felt that bringing this piece of copper material might bring about great trouble. It might attract some special things, so it was better to be cautious before reaching the great completion. Wu Shi's father had already died with a grievance. After leaving the Jade Lake and arriving on the surface, the scorching sun was overhead. The eerie and sinister feeling immediately disappeared, allowing the little fatty to heave a sigh of relief. The curse came from the underworld. Or is it related to the natural order of the world? Yi Fan took one last look at the Jade Lake, and then left with large strides. The divine sun shone brightly in the clear sky. Patches of scarlet land that spanned millions of miles quickly receded under Yi Fan's feet. He returned to the divine city, but he didn't stop and went to the central region. According to the agreed location, Yi Fan saw Yan Ishi and Li Tian. The two of them clicked their tongues in wonder and threatened him, saying that they wanted to cut him out and see what race he was. The fair little fatty's body was smooth and smooth. After being criticized and threatened like this, he immediately gritted his teeth and looked like he was going to risk his life. There's news. We spent a lot of effort this time, and we finally got something, Li Tian said. Really? Yi Fan was pleasantly surprised. Yes, someone from the Ziwei segmentum came. We found out. Yan Ishi smiled. What bad things do you want to do? The little fatty in the celestial source asked cautiously. He looked as if he had been sold. We're going there to sell and kidnap children, Li Tian said with a chuckle. Yi Fan really wanted to go to the Ziwei segmentum to look for the little girl. From the message left behind by Yin Tienda, the little girl might have been lost there. He hadn't seen Yin Tienda on the ancient road, so he wanted to go to the Ziwei segmentum to take a look. After so many years, the disappearance of the little girl had always been a knot in his heart. He had used all kinds of methods and searched all over the Northern Dipper, but he couldn't find her. Now that he had a new idea, he naturally had to investigate thoroughly. In the past, he had ridden the 9-dragon coffin from the forbidden area of the ancient desolate era. He had experienced all kinds of unforeseen events before arriving at that starfield. Now he naturally couldn't replicate it. If he went to the forbidden zone of life again, he would most likely die. I've confirmed it. It's an old saint. If we go and ask him, we can show our sincerity. We should be able to find him. Yi Fan and the others set out, and nothing unexpected happened. They found the old saint, and everything went smoothly. They obtained the coordinates of the Ziwei starfield. I hope the little girl is there. We can find her, said Yi Fan. After dealing with some matters, he could move out. Who is she? Shenhua asked. Someone who specializes in taking care of you. Li Tian laughed. Chapter 1533. Before leaving Big Dipper, Yi Fan naturally had many things to do. He had to inform the people from Heaven Village that he was going to visit Ji family. When he went to Ji family, he made a fool of himself. He gave a baby as a gift, causing everyone to look at one another. Ji family made it clear that if it was because of Ji Ziyue, what was the point of giving a baby? Father. The fatty was really bad and shouted on the spot. In the end, a row of tables were flipped. The main culprit just blinked his eyes innocently and didn't say a word. In the future, I will cook you and feed you to the Black Emperor. After leaving Ji family, Yi Fan really wanted to cut him out. I didn't call you. I won't take such a loss. My divine sense has a blurry impression. The fatty was really stubborn. Yi Fan didn't say a word and searched his celestial platform. In the end, he didn't find anything. This fatty was doing this on purpose. Yi Fan wanted to give the Ji family a future quasi-emperor, which could protect the Ji family for a lifetime of glory. However, when he thought of the words of the god of misfortune, Hunchuo, he did not insist. Of course, it was mainly because of the little fatty who caused trouble and called out randomly. He left half of the source of the Tao and then crossed Jishui River. Master, I want to go back. When Yi Tong heard that Yi Fan wanted to cross to Ziwei Starfield, his eyes turned red and tears flowed down. The hatred of the extermination of his family, the blood feud, his childhood was filled with sorrow. His parents, his elder brother, his little sister who died in front of him, and the loyal old servant who protected him while he was fleeing. Whenever he thought of them, his eyes would sting and his heart would ache. Yi Fan nodded. It was time to bring Yi Tong to Ziwei Starfield. It was time to settle the past. After being away for so many years, it's about time for us to return home in glory. After so many years, the goddesses and saintesses of Ziwei have almost forgotten about the supreme glory of me, Great Emperor Li Tian. The two of them came from Ziwei. They definitely had to go back to take a look. Back then, the ancestors of their bloodline had been wiped out by the sections. The reason why the two of them left was because they wanted to break free from the swamp. If not, there would always be trouble. Right now, as Saint Kings, they could naturally return, not fearing the other sections. I feel that the path to immortality is really about to open. The footsteps are getting closer and closer. We have to make our preparations. We cannot put ourselves in danger, Yi Fan said. What are you afraid of? Let's fight our way in. The little fatty shouted. In the end, Yi Fan lifted him up and slapped his little buttocks. The force naturally entered his immortal origin, causing him to cry out loudly, his little buttocks completely red. You dare to hit this celestial emperor? I'll fight it out with you. The little fatty howled. However, he was still far from being able to shake the holy body. This little fatty is a talent. He was born to be a saint. Leave him here, and let me train him well. Qi Luo and the others were excited. After nurturing Yi Tong, Little K, Hua, and the others in the heavenly village, they were especially interested in this kind of heaven-defying genius. Yi Fan shook his head and said, Forget it. Let him stay by my side for now. This is a world-destroying disaster. He even scared Hunchuo so much that he ran like an old rabbit. Maybe there will really be some changes in the future. Let's just focus everything on me. It's good that you know. The little fatty mumbled. In the end, he was slapped again and cried out continuously. Little fatty, I heard that your background is not small. I'll give you an arhat position. Come with big brother. Hua returned and teased him. Baldy, don't tempt me. You're not a beauty. The little fatty glared. I have a nun there. I'll bestow you as a bodhisattva. Hua smiled mischievously. In the end, Yi Fan gave him a light slap on his bald head. The sound was crisp and clear. A group of people from the western desert came, including Kaida. Now known as the Golden Fur Heavenly King, he was the protector of the western desert branch of the Celestial Court. He ate meat and drank wine with Hua in the temple every day. The old monk Imoku had had enough. If it wasn't for the fact that Hua was the proof of a Buddhist reincarnation and a miracle, he would have slapped the two of them into meat paste long ago. One had to know that the old monk was the great sage. Back then, he dared to fight against the victorious fighting Buddha. Now he was the abbot of the great Thunderclap Temple. His status was extremely respected. However, he wanted to see through the truth of reincarnation. That was why he agreed to be the protector of the mountain gate for Huahua. Everyone discussed and decided that the people of the celestial court should gradually leave Big Dipper. Otherwise, once the path of immortality opened, no one could say what would happen. Everyone wanted to become an immortal. However, they had to stay alive. They had come into contact with too many things. The green copper cauldron was in their hands. The more they understood, the more they felt that the hope was slim. Wasn't it better to stay in the outer realm and observe quietly first? Without a doubt, there were many people in the universe who had the same idea. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent their subordinates first and not the giants themselves. Conceited people can't hold back in the end. They will descend sooner or later. At that time, it wouldn't be surprising if a battle of the quasi-emperor appeared. What was surprising was that in the next half a month, just as they were preparing to retreat, people from the outer realm descended to look for them. It's the siblings Gu Fei and Gu Lin. They came out from the heavenly village and actually returned to Big Dipper. Everyone was surprised and delighted. After the disappearance of the unreliable Black Emperor, everyone's contact with the outer realm was cut off. Now that the siblings had descended, it was a piece of extremely good news. Little K, Gu Lin and Little K, had a very good relationship. After being separated for so many years, they quickly rushed over. When they saw Yi Fan, the siblings were even more stunned. They quickly rushed over and paid their respects. After being separated for so many years, the siblings had long since grown up. The younger sister was still very lively, but the older brother was relatively steady. He wore a Taoist robe, and he looked like a heavenly master. He had a long beard. In reality, the others had also been separated from the siblings for more than 10 years, and some had been separated for even longer. After meeting again, they naturally had endless things to talk about. Has the Black Emperor returned? The two Silver Blood Emperors asked, their expressions very awkward. The two of them had been trained by the large black dog to the point that they still shivered when they thought about it. No, ever since he disappeared, he hasn't returned. Gu Fei shook his head. Even with the abilities of the siblings, they couldn't divine the whereabouts of the Black Emperor. It was just like trying to divine for Yi Fan. They would definitely suffer a backlash. In the words of the siblings, the first possibility was that Yi Fan's fate was too tough, and the second was that his future accomplishments were limitless, and it was difficult for external things to interfere. The so-called divination of the future had long since been explained by the ancient sages. Divination was like seeing fallen leaves fluttering in the air, and predicting that they would definitely fall to the ground. It was nothing more than witnessing and predicting a certain trend based on a certain trajectory. Of course, it couldn't be completely taken seriously. For example, those fallen leaves could also fall into the tree hole, and even when they turned into dried mud, they would never fall to the ground. Come, take a look at this little fatty's background, and see if we can see through him. Yi Fan invited the siblings to perform the spell, and he would personally protect them to prevent any accidents from happening to them. Gu Fei and Gu Lin nodded in agreement. They took out various magic tools, set up a tortoiseshell platform, and carved various symbols on it. They sat cross-legged on it, and then carried the little fatty up. What do you guys want to do to me? He kicked with all his might. Everyone laughed loudly. This fair-skinned little fatty was actually behaving like a little wife who had encountered a bad guy, and his eyes were filled with fear. The siblings performed the spell, and the place instantly flickered. The little fatty was very uneasy, and he twisted his body, wanting nothing more than to flee immediately. Crack! The final result was that the tortoiseshell platform exploded, and two indescribable laws interweaved in the void, hacking toward Gu Fei and Gu Lin. Swoosh! In that instant, the two of them disappeared. Yi Fan appeared where he was. This was the life substitution art, and it had long been set up. Once an accident happened, Yi Fan would take the blame for them. Two light sounds rang out, and two bloody marks appeared on Yi Fan's forehead, like cracks extending to his chin. It could be said to be very dangerous, and fresh blood dripped down. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. Even the cheeky Huahua's expression changed drastically. He stared at the divine child, and then looked at Yi Fan asking, "Master, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Yi Fan operated his mysterious art, repairing his immortal platform, and the bloody marks disappeared. However, everyone saw the golden blood just now, and it was a ghastly sight. What exactly was this child's background? Performing a divination on him actually caused Yi Fan to be injured. It was simply inconceivable. If Gu Fei and Gu Lin were the ones who were injured earlier, they would definitely have turned into ashes by now. Even the old assassin Qi Luo felt his hair stand on end. It was just a child, yet he was able to deduce his past and origin, and it actually resulted in such a powerful backlash. It was terrifying to the extreme. In this world, ancient emperors couldn't perform divination, and immortals couldn't either. Otherwise, they would definitely suffer a calamity. Naturally, there were some other taboo things as well. They couldn't perform divination, or else a great calamity would befall them. Whose child is this? It can't be that he really fell down from the immortal realms, right? Everyone was bewildered. Right now, Yi Fan was shoulder to shoulder with the great sage. When he performed the divination on behalf of Gu Fei and Gu Lin, he was also injured. This was enough to explain the problem. Only after a long time did everyone calm down. "Don't bully me, I'm very powerful," the little fatty said. "Pa." Yi Fan gave his little bottom another slap. Of course, he didn't use any force, but as a result he was so angry that he immediately stomped his feet. Everyone roared with laughter. The tense atmosphere was completely swept away. Gu Fei and Gu Lin laid down formation cores one after another before gradually arriving at the Big Dipper. Moreover, they already calculated the heavenly village's coordinates, so they could return along their original path. Everyone retreated from the Big Dipper, advancing all the way until they arrived at the heavenly village. It was extremely smooth. "We've finally returned." Everyone was deeply moved. In the village, a group of children ran over. There were even more elders who appeared at the entrance of the village excitedly. It was extremely lively. "We don't know what kind of dangers there will be on this trip. You all must be careful." Killing Saint Qi Luo warned repeatedly. Purple Star. That star domain wasn't a simple place. There were many legends about it, and it was believed to be an emperor star. Those who charged into the ancient heaven might have resided there for a long time. Even though Yi Fan and the others were currently extremely powerful, they still had to be careful. It wouldn't be strange if they encountered some people or things from the era of the Celestial Court. After all, this was a great era. The path to immortality was about to open, and any kind of minotaur or monster could appear. When everything was settled, Yi Fan carried the little fatty and Yi Tong. He set off with Li Tian and Yenishi. They stood on the divine light platform and advanced toward the ancient purple star domain. "I hope to see little Nan Nan as soon as possible." Yi Fan made up his mind. He definitely had to find her. No matter how great the trouble, he had to carry it out to the end. "I hope the ancient heaven is really in the purple star domain." Li Tian was also filled with anticipation. Yenishi, on the other hand, was much calmer. Chapter 1534. Heavenly Village was flourishing, because Yi Fan left behind too many precious things, almost leaving the village with nothing to show for it. Pretty much leaving behind everything he obtained in the past. Not to mention the various divine materials, just the Tao Scripture's Sea of Reincarnation, and the Celestial Scripture of Sun's immortal platform were priceless treasures. Early in the morning, a group of children in the heavenly village cultivated seriously. All of them were full of vigor and showed the power of hope for the future. Yi Fan left without Longma and the others. Apart from Shenhua, the others had all left their footprints in Ziwei. Even though it wasn't the first time they had crossed the sky, they still couldn't help but sigh when faced with the vastness of the universe. Humans were dust to a star, and the stars were dust to the universe. Entering from one star region to another was done by the microscopic creatures in the dust. This was a magnificent feat, which was why there was the saying that life was the greatest miracle in the world. The universe was boundless. It was like a huge black curtain, and the stars were dotted on it. They were like diamonds that were twinkling. Passing through the void of the universe, Yi Fan stood under the resplendent starry sky and looked at the purple star in front of him. He felt a majestic pressure. This was a star that had once produced a great emperor. Only then could there be such a powerful fluctuation. According to legend, any star that had produced a great emperor would be hard to destroy because of the Tao marks they had left behind and the protection of the laws they had used to achieve the Tao. Yi Tong's eyes turned red and he couldn't help but cry silently. His parents, sister, and too many of his relatives had died. All of this was because of the Golden Crow race's massacre. There was no eternal inheritance and no immortal emperor or emperor. Even though they were the descendants of the Sun Saint Emperor, too many things had happened, and the race had declined. Their formations were destroyed, their emperor weapons were gone, and their immortal scriptures were lost. They were heading towards the end of their decline. Father, mother, sister who blocked the sword for me, I'm back. Yi Tong couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. Under the persuasion of Yi Fan, Yan Yishi, and Li Tian, he only calmed down after a long while. The group of people flew forward, approaching this ancient land of life. The divine child blinked his large eyes and said, "It feels a bit familiar, a bit similar to my birthplace." They were finally close, arriving in the skies above this great star. The boundless great earth and vast ocean below could already be seen from outer space. The radiance of natural laws flickered, everything hazy. They're finally back. The two founders of the human desire Tao have returned to their old haunt. Ladies, tremble and welcome the arrival of the greatest monarch. Li Tian shouted loudly with an excited expression. Yan Yishi also revealed an excited expression. He had left for more than 100 years. Throughout his life, he had spent the majority of his time in Big Dipper. Now that he had returned to his hometown, how could his heart remain calm? It had been so long that even Yi Fan had almost forgotten that Li Tian and Yan Yishi, who were beside him, were from the Ziwei segmentum. They were not born in the Big Dipper. This was their birthplace. I'm so close to home, Li Tian said, lamenting the fact that he had left for so many years. Now that he had returned, he was happy, but also a bit disappointed. However, his next words destroyed the atmosphere. He said to himself, I wonder if all the beauties I had back then have married. I'm so nervous. I don't think anyone will miss you. Before we left, you were like a rat on the street to the ladies. Everyone wanted to beat you up. Yan Yishi said with a smile. They descended at an extremely fast speed. Below them was a vast and magnificent stretch of mountains and rivers. The land was boundless and boundless. Majestic mountains towered into the clouds, and surging rivers spanned hundreds of thousands of miles. There were also many immortal lands with spiritual energy rushing into the heavens. Purple mist rose. This was a magnificent world. It was vast yet didn't lose its beauty, majestic yet didn't lose its immortal aura. It was shocking. I, Great Emperor Li Tian, have returned. The human desire Tao's inheritance will not be destroyed. It will shine brilliantly in this era. When they landed on the ground, spiritual energy surged like tides. This place was even more special. Yi Fan felt that it was somewhat familiar. He found that it was coincidentally the Eight Visions Palace of Xuandu Cave. It's this place again, he couldn't help but whisper. When he descended back then, it was because he landed outside this mountain gate that he was forced to form a grudge with Yin Tianda, the Eight Visions Palace of the Taiqing Holy Land. This is a good place. Even the eyes of Yan Yishi, the elegant successor of the human desire Tao, lit up. Yin Tianda ran to the ancient starry sky path. There's no chance to fight with him anymore. I wonder if he left anything behind. Li Tian also rubbed his palms together. Unfortunately, they were disappointed. The place was empty. Even the so-called Eight Visions Palace had been uprooted. There was nothing left. Yin Tianda, a guy who already had a divine restriction back then. He dared to snatch the ancient scriptures of the gods from the hands of a king, when he just cut his path. He will definitely be a great enemy in the future, Yan Yishi said. Master, I'm sad and my emotions are fluctuating violently. I'm going to cross the Saint King tribulation now, Yi Tong said. Great sorrow and great joy surged in his heart, making it difficult for Yi Tong to suppress these fluctuations. He couldn't help but cross his own Saint King tribulation. Let nature take its course. Don't suppress it. I'll protect you. Yi Fan nodded, feeling very gratified. Boom. Yi Tong's tribulation attracted all kinds of strange phenomena. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sea of lightning was boundless. Yi Fan quickly took action. He laid down Great Emperor Wusher's heaven-deceiving formation to protect the nearby land. Otherwise, he was really afraid that it would be destroyed by the lightning. Everything went smoothly, although it took a long time. Yi Tong walked out of the lightning and turned into a supreme Saint King. Bolts of lightning coiled around his body. At the same time, the sun shot out a blazing light and merged with him. It baptized his body and nourished his primordial spirit. These kinds of phenomena appeared one after another, alarming the Ziwei segmentum. Many experts moved out and rushed to this region. Unfortunately, when they arrived, Yi Fan and the others had already removed the formation and left. The mountains and rivers were boundless, and the land was vast. This star was divided into several continents, such as the Lu continent, the Divine Prefecture, and the He continent. In the middle, there was a vast ocean. Wanting to find a person in such a vast territory could be said to be like finding a needle in a haystack. It was easier said than done. Master, I want to pay my respects to my mother and the others. I'll leave for a while. Yi Tong said with a trembling voice. The Golden Crow race had killed his entire family. Now there was not even a blade of grass growing in his family. There was no life left, only bones. He wanted to build a grave. Yi Fan sighed and said, Go. If a strong enemy really appears, don't force yourself. Come find me quickly. Yi Tong nodded, indicating that he understood. He left with tears in his eyes. Who is my mother? The divine child muttered. He rubbed his sparkling eyes and was lost in thought. Think hard. I also want to know what kind of monster could give birth to such a troublemaker like you. Li Tian teased him. You bully me now. Be careful. I'll suppress you for 10,000 years in the future. The little fatty always refused to admit defeat. All right then. Since you're still young, I'll spank you a few more times. I'll leave a beautiful memory for the big shots in the future. Li Tian spanked his little butt. He didn't use much force. Whoever is spanking me, I'll record it in my account book. The little fatty yelled. He was flustered and exasperated. He was really afraid that someone would mention such an embarrassing incident when he ruled the world in the future. What should we do? How do we find them? Yi Fan sighed. In the end, he had no choice but to draw the little girl's appearance. He was prepared to offer a high reward and mobilize all forces to find clues. He even asked the top forces to help him. However, the result was beyond their expectations. In a grand and huge city, he had just taken out the first painting scroll. Someone recognized it as soon as he opened his mouth. Moreover, it was so natural. Do you know him? Yi Fan asked suspiciously. Of course. A rough-looking uncle said. His cultivation level was only at the Holy Ji Palace secret plane. Compared to a saint, it was too low. It made people doubt whether what he said was true or not. Are you sure? Yan Ishi added. Who in the world doesn't know? Big Beard looked at them with disdain as if he was looking at country bumpkins. Li Tian was depressed at that moment. He had returned to his hometown in glory, yet he did not receive the worship of the heroes. Instead, he was looked down upon by a tragic Big Beard. Big Beard looked like he was teaching a junior a lesson. He said to Li Tian, Little brat, you must have just entered the world of cultivation. Otherwise, how could you not know these things? Li Tian was even more depressed. He wanted to vomit blood. He said angrily, I became a Saint King 18 years ago. Bullsh *T. If you are a Saint King, I am the founder of the Saint King, Quasi-Emperor. Big Beard looked disdainful. Li Tian was tongue-tied. He was so choked that he could not say anything. It was really not good for him to attack this mortal. He was also too embarrassed to show his saintly might in front of him. It was really annoying. The divine child, who had been hidden by Yi Fan's concealment technique, wanted to hit the ground. He could not stop grinning. Li Tian was so angry that he hit his little butt again. This is strange. Li Tian said angrily. Tell me, why does everyone in the world know about this? Yi Fan also looked surprised. In fact, be it him or Li Tian, they were already shocked. They felt that something had happened. What Big Beard said was most likely true. Who doesn't know that a divine infant descended from the heavens? Over the past 100 years, every cultivator has seen its portrait. Big Beard criticized Li Tian. He said, youngsters nowadays are really impetuous. They are getting worse and worse. They don't know how to respect their masters. They don't even show respect to a senior like me. Thank you, senior expert in the Doctrine Palace realm. I thank you for 3 generations. Li Tian said with a dark expression. He could not stand being treated as a young brat. He grabbed another cultivator beside him and asked about the little girl's origins. However, Big Beard was very enthusiastic. He would occasionally interrupt and tell him about the extraordinary nature of the divine infant. Her tears can regenerate flesh and bones from the dead. It is comparable to the elixir of immortality. A strand of hair that she dropped was obtained by someone and ground into fine powder. After consuming it, the person's great Tao injuries were healed. Where is the Ziwei Divine Dynasty's Imperial Tower? Yi Fan did not want to hear about the little girl's miraculous abilities. He only wanted to see her as soon as possible. That's right. Let's not talk about other things. We are going to the Ziwei Divine Dynasty, Li Tian said loudly. Chapter 1535. The imperial palace of the Ziwei God Dynasty has been destroyed for more than 100 years, said a cultivator at the side. What? The Ziwei God Dynasty was destroyed? Li Tian cried out in shock. He and Yan Ishi grew up on this land and knew how terrifying this giant was. It was an undying holy land, but they didn't expect it to be uprooted. Even Yi Fan was stunned. He remembered the prophecy made by the imperial tutor of the Ziwei God Dynasty before he passed away. The divine infant descended from the sky and the dynasty would prosper, but the result was like this. The imperial tutor's prophecy didn't come true. Things developed in the opposite direction. Yan Ishi was also stupefied. Such a great divine dynasty was wiped out just like that. This was truly unexpected, shocking everyone's minds. It did prosper. It was extremely prosperous for 100 years before it collapsed and was completely destroyed, someone said. So that's how it is. It's a pity that the imperial tutor saw the scene of the Ziwei God dynasty prospering before he passed away, but in the end, this was the result. As expected. I guessed the beginning, but I couldn't guess the ending. Even Yi Fan was stunned. Who would have thought that the so-called prosperity only lasted for 100 years? Then everything changed. An undying god dynasty reached its end and turned into dust. Big Beard patted Li Tian's shoulder and said, Young man, I think highly of you. Your aptitude is not bad. Take me as your master. Now you don't know anything. As your master, I will teach you well and bring you into the true cultivation world. I will let you experience the supreme glory of a cultivator. Go. Black lines appeared on Li Tian's forehead, but he still endured it in the end. He told himself not to lower himself to the level of a mortal, and to train his mind. How did the Ziwei God dynasty get destroyed? Yan Ishi mumbled to himself. Only by understanding could he be in awe. The origin of this giant was too great in the past. Someone sighed and said, Of course, it's because the divine infant descended from the sky and attracted the covetous eyes of all the holy lands. They joined forces to attack them. On top of that, an incomparably terrifying force came from the outer realm and directly attacked the dynasty, turning them into ashes. Success is due to the divine infant, and failure is also due to the divine infant. The source of all problems lies with her. Big Beard concluded. Where did the nascent soul go? Yi Fan asked. Regardless of whether it was the Ziwei Divine Dynasty or the major powers that descended from the outer realms, he didn't care about them. He only cared about the little girl. Where is she now? Li Tian also asked. Young man, don't let your imagination run wild. The nascent soul isn't something you can pursue. Be obedient and come with me. We'll comprehend that supreme great Tao together. Only then will you have the right to aspire to rule the world, Big Beard said earnestly. Thank you, Master of the Tao Palace Realm. You're out of my league. I'll be pissed to death if I have to be taught by you for even a day. In fact, he was already panting heavily. Little Nan Nan had disappeared. This was the situation that Yi Fan and the others understood after a round of communication. Ziwei prospered for 100 years, but in the end, it was defeated and wiped out. The nascent god ended up wandering outside the divine dynasty during this battle. Over the past few decades, there were people who saw it a few times, and it triggered a great massacre. The whole world fought over it, but in the end, it was to no avail. The reason why every cultivator knew about little Nan Nan was because her portrait had spread throughout the cultivation world over the past few decades. She had been searched for decades. Now that Yi Fan and the others had revealed her portrait to others, it was the behavior of a rookie. It was no wonder that Big Beard looked down on them. Everyone in the world is searching for her. They've entered and exited the great wilderness, and entered various great treasured lands. They've been searching for decades. Even if they found something, do you think they'd tell you? That's an immortal divine herb. In the Ziwei Ancient segment, almost everyone thought that little Nan Nan was a special immortal divine herb. She had broken through the shackles that were impossible to break through in the world, and she had become an immortal divine herb. Who wouldn't care? Everyone in the world had gone crazy. This divine herb had surpassed everything in the past, and it was the first in history. Over the past few decades, the entire cultivation world was in chaos. Heroes rose up together to search for little Nan Nan's whereabouts. They wanted to obtain the great secret that allowed her to obtain immortality. In the eyes of the world, she's the first immortal divine herb in history. When Yi Fan heard this, he frowned deeply. This news was truly not good. Little Nan Nan's situation was worrying. She was simply like the legendary Xuanzang's flesh, attracting all the gods and devils in the world. Everyone wanted a bite of her. It was precisely because of this that the Ziwei divine dynasty was destroyed. It could be said that whoever controlled little Nan Nan would be the enemy of the entire world. They would be attacked by many experts, and it would be difficult for them to gain a foothold. After all, in the eyes of the world, this was a divine herb that had taken on a human form. Its significance was no less than that of a true immortal. In reality, this was also the case. An immortal divine herb could take on a human form and coexist with the world. It would never age. This was immortality, achieving immortality. Other than not having great strength, what was the difference between them and immortals? Everyone wants it. Many people think that as long as they eat her, they would have an endless lifespan and obtain immortality. They might even be able to ascend and enter the immortal world. If their conjecture was true, all the immortal divine herbs added up wouldn't be able to match up to little Nan Nan. How could the world not go crazy? What should we do? Yanishi frowned. I've already made preparations to become the enemy of the entire world. Whoever dares to harm little Nan will have to pass through me first. Yi Fan coldly spoke, his voice containing a towering killing intent. However, he was very worried in his heart because little Nan Nan hadn't appeared for many years. Even if she was found, she definitely wouldn't be made public. This matter was very thorny. He had to find the little girl as soon as possible, or there would be countless variables. One must know that all the experts in the world were thinking about her. When they parted, the Dao Palace realm uncle felt a sense of regret. He pulled Li Tian's hand and advised him sincerely, "Child, you will regret it for the rest of your life if you miss out on a great teacher like me. Quasi-Emperor, I'm not worthy of you. Please spare me." Li Tian pinched his nose and bade farewell. He felt that he was extremely unlucky to have met such a person. Sigh, the road of a future quasi-emperor is so lonely. What a pity for my supreme secret technique. Little brat, don't regret it in the future. The bearded man shook his head and disappeared into the vast crowd. Boom. After leaving the city, Li Tian sent a tall mountain flying with a slap. He heaved a sigh of relief and said, "It's finally quiet." Ha ha. The little fatty in the immortal source laughed loudly, rejoicing in Li Tian's misfortune. He was just short of rolling on the ground. Li Tian felt even more depressed. He was mocked by a little brat. He instantly gave the fatty a few slaps. Where are we going? Yan Ishi wasn't in a hurry to go to the man-desire path. Finding little Nan Nan was more important. Let's go to the ruins of the Ziwei divine dynasty first and think of a solution. Yi Fan felt very helpless. This world was too vast. It was easier said than done to find a little brat. The fog was hazy. This was a vast remnant of the Ziwei divine dynasty. Even though tens of years had passed, this place was still bone-chilling and filled with killing intent. In the battle in the past, too many people died here. Almost the entire Ziwei divine dynasty was annihilated. A huge divine sect had become a thing of the past. This place was in ruins. Rubble could be seen everywhere. There wasn't a single intact building that had survived. Not only this place, all the important places that the Ziwei divine dynasty once ruled over were all destroyed, uprooted. There was no chance for the Ziwei divine dynasty to revive, forever erased from the world. There wasn't even a single stalk of wild grass in this area. The ground was blackish red, dyed by blood. Even now there was still the smell of blood. In fact, there was even saint blood that hadn't dried up yet. In this battle, the performance of the Ziwei divine sect could be said to be extremely powerful. Their ancestors had found divine origin liquid from the primal chaos Pure Land, and sealed some extremely powerful saints with it. Sadly, even after using all their trump cards, they were still completely destroyed by others. Their main force was none other than the major powers that descended from the outer realms. In addition to the support of many holy lands, they finally reached the end of their path. Yi Fan entered the ruins of the imperial city and came to the central area. When he saw a gigantic cave, a strange look appeared on his face. Wisps of black fog filled the air, and the baleful aura was terrifying. This was especially so for this cave. It was as if it was pierced out by a huge weapon. Yi Fan used the Vedas scripture's ancient method, returning to the origin and earnestly deducing it. He wanted to see how this large hole was formed, because even he felt a wave of cold killing intent. The one who did this was clearly extremely terrifying. A set of scenes appeared. A battle spear flew from the outer realms, and directly entered the center of the imperial city. There was no powerful divine power that surged out, only a terrifying killing intent. In the end, although the imperial city collapsed, it didn't turn into dust. However, countless living beings exploded and died in the killing intent. On this day, no less than 50,000 cultivators died. If there were still common people in the city, then it would simply be unimaginable. Such a shocking strike was one of the major reasons for the destruction of the Ziwei divine dynasty. A supreme combat force appeared, and with a shocking strike, the fighting spirit of the remaining powerhouses was destroyed. It seems like an extremely powerful character made a move in the past. Even the Yuhua God dynasty couldn't block it with all their trump cards, Yan Ishi said. It might not necessarily be an extremely powerful character. Maybe that battle spear was too powerful. The divine power fluctuations weren't very intense. The main reason was that a supreme killing intent appeared. Li Tian said. Clang, clang. Suddenly, an item started struggling in Yi Fan's body. His body also emitted rays of black light, and the killing intent was overwhelming. This is... Yi Fan was surprised. With a move of his divine will, a black spear appeared in his hand, emitting a terrifying light. The black light pierced through the 9 heavens, and all the clouds in the sky were scattered. He didn't activate it. Instead, this weapon shone on its own, emitting killing intent. It was shocking. Clearly, this dark golden spear resonated with the aura in the cave. There was a kind of battle intent that reached the clouds. It was actually at a terrifying level, shocking everyone. I'm afraid this spear isn't in the category of a holy weapon, Yan Ishi said with a strange expression. This spear came from the Kunlun mountain. Its true origin was unknown. According to Longma, it flew down from the outer realm and stabbed into the immortal Ascension ancient land. And Yi Fan had also examined this spear many times. He discovered that the gods inside were almost all dead. Only the lower part of the spear was left, and he couldn't pry into any secrets. He didn't expect that it would actually emit light on its own today. This was a kind of instinctive resistance and reaction. Could it be a quasi-emperor weapon? Li Tian said. Yi Fan didn't say anything. A long time ago, he had some conjectures. In the endless depths of the universe, there was a fierce battle. In the end, the black spear was almost destroyed. It tore through the void and fell on the Kunlun mountain. But now, it seemed that the enemy of this spear might have appeared in the Ziwei ancient star field. After a long time, the black spear slowly calmed down. The black light receded, and the killing intent in the huge cave was also cleansed. It seems that this trip to Ziwei won't be as peaceful as I imagined, Yi Fan said. At this time, after the killing intent had receded, he suddenly sensed a familiar aura with powerful fluctuations of life. Little Nan Nan's aura. Yi Fan was shocked. He suddenly turned around and rushed toward a broken wall in the distance. His speed had reached the limit. Chapter 1536. The wisps of black mist dispersed, revealing a large pitch-black crack that was 7 or 8 zhang wide, and over 100 li long. It traversed through the imperial city, and was obviously left behind from a great battle. Yi Fan entered the crack in the earth and directly went several hundred zhang underground. He came into contact with a large underground karst cave, and the aura here was even stronger. He was apprehensive. Could it be that he had found the little darling as soon as he arrived here? He shook his head, but this kind of exuberant life energy couldn't be lacking. There was a pond in the underground karst cave. Stalactites were everywhere, like snails and giant bamboo shoots. Water continuously dripped down, and the sound came from the darkness and emptiness, making it all the more quiet. Yan Ishi and Li Tian also followed, walking behind Yi Fan. They were a bit suspicious because they didn't sense anything special. Here, in a puddle, there was a sparkling and translucent crystal stone. It was like a diamond, flickering with beautiful radiance. Beside it, there was a jade jar that had shattered, and the crystal seemed to have rolled out from within. Yi Fan picked up the sparkling granule. It was extremely translucent, and gave off 7-colored light. The aura of life assaulted his senses, and there was the little darling's aura. It's not that little 7-colored stone. Its shape seems to be condensed from a teardrop. He was extremely astonished. Could it be that the little fellow's teardrop could also turn into this kind of crystal? Yan Ishi and Li Tian were both astonished. They didn't sense anything even when they approached. They really didn't know how Yi Fan could find clues from so far away. Li Tian received it and said, "When I touched it with my finger, I felt an incredible divine might, as if there was immortal energy pouring into my body." Yan Ishi was also astonished. Why couldn't they sense it from a distance and could only sense it through contact? He was extremely puzzled. It must be because the little darling gave me the little 7-colored stone back then, and I absorbed the 7-colored multicolored light inside, Yi Fan said, giving this kind of explanation. At the same time, he revealed a hint of joy. It was difficult for others to find the little darling, but he could rely on this to sense it. This was not a small advantage. Of course, compared to the vastness of the earth, this kind of advantage made people feel helpless. The vastness of the land was truly a headache, like finding a needle in a haystack. And this was a really big problem. In the following half a month, Yi Fan and the others crossed the straits and appeared on several continents, searching for clues about little Nan Nan. Unfortunately, not even a trace of it could be found. Decades had passed, and the major forces of the Ziwei segmentum had no results. It was unrealistic for them to find him as soon as they arrived. What should we do? The Human King Palace, the Netheridge Longevity Monastery, the Moon Palace, and the other major factions have been searching for decades. Perhaps they have found something. I have to pay them a visit, Yi Fan muttered to himself. He had no other choice but to collect the fruits of everyone's labor. Perhaps this would be the only way to break through some of the fog surrounding little Nan Nan's tracks. That's true. After all, they've been searching for dozens of years. They definitely have more valuable information than us. Yan Ishi nodded. From that day onwards, a mysterious figure appeared in the Divine Prefecture, Luzhou, and He Prefecture. He turned to the powerhouses of the major sects and struck them with their clubs, but he did not take their lives. This was naturally Yi Fan. He had secretly taken down dozens of people, and they were all elites of the major sections. He had searched their consciousness for everything related to little Nan Nan. In the end, the more he looked, the uglier his expression became. These people treated little Nan Nan as an immortal medicine. All of them wanted to throw her into the cauldron, and refine her into a furnace of immortal pills. The only thing worth rejoicing about was that, from what they knew, no one had succeeded yet. It's time to make a move against the most crucial major faction. After all, they are the masterminds, Li Tian said. Decades ago, the Ziwei divine dynasty had turned into ashes. The main culprit was that major faction that had descended from the outer realms. Now, it could be said that they had replaced it and become the strongest faction on this planet. After so many years, they had expanded rapidly. Many independent cultivators had joined them, and they seemed to be stabilizing the world. They had the domineering aura of swallowing the ancient continents. If this continued, it would not be strange for them to unify the Ziwei segmentum. However, the higher-ups of the Ziwei divine dynasty had always been mysterious and shrouded in a layer of fog. Even powerful factions like the Longevity Temple and Human King Hall didn't know everything. The moonlight was gentle and beautiful, and not a single sound could be heard. A majestic city appeared on the horizon. This was Kuran City, a place that caused all cultivators in the world to stop and feel deep reverence. Decades ago, they were the ones who destroyed the Ziwei divine dynasty, causing an eternal faction that had existed for thousands of years to meet its end. They were a Leviathan, and today, who would dare to provoke them? Once the order was issued, no one dared to disobey. From their expansion, it seemed that they really wanted to control the entire imperial planet. This caused the various major factions to be deeply worried. They regretted joining forces with them to destroy the Ziwei divine dynasty back then. This was equivalent to killing a tiger and attracting an evil dragon. The moonlight was like water. The majestic city stood tall on the ground like an ancient ferocious beast in hibernation. Although its malevolence was restrained, it still exuded a terrifying aura. Yi Fan came alone. He stepped on the moonlight and entered the majestic city. He directly went to the inner part of the imperial city and was obstructed by a heaven-shaking grand formation. He didn't barge in forcefully. After observing for a period of time, he couldn't help but be shocked. There was actually Emperor's might here, and there was a killing formation set up by the quasi-emperor. At this moment, Yi Fan's eyes instantly turned cold. He placed this divine dynasty in the most dangerous category. This wasn't a simple major faction, and its origins weren't simple at all. He carefully sensed it, but he wasn't sure if the quasi-emperor was here. However, he could sense a trace of dark clouds from the formation here. No matter what, the ruler behind it was extremely terrifying. Yi Fan didn't want to alert the enemy. He didn't want to start a war in this place. After waiting for a long time, an expert appeared in the imperial city. As for the guards before him, he felt disdain to act. This person was a half-sage. To him, this person wasn't considered much. But in this mortal world, this person was already considered very strong. Yi Fan transformed into a beam of divine light and swooped down, carrying this person away. It could be said that he didn't waste the slightest effort. No one noticed him at all. In the wilderness, Yi Fan searched his sea of consciousness, observing the origins of this great sect. After a moment, his heart trembled. This sect really had a great background. In the depths of the starry skies, there was a ruler whose cultivation was unknown. He didn't know where he came from, but he sent down a decree and ordered his disciples to move out. He wanted to unify the Ziwei ancient region. They wanted to build a celestial court. In the end, Yi Fan obtained this information. How could he not be shocked? How bold was this person? This wasn't establishing a sect on an ancient planet, but putting it into action. They wanted to conquer one region after another, building such a huge system and recreating the glory of the legendary era. Truly amazing. Li Tian and Yan Ishi walked out from the mountain ridge. After seeing this person's immortal foundation, they couldn't help but sigh in admiration. To build a celestial court that can rule over 10,000 regions, this person should be quasi-emperor at the very least, right? Who in the current human race can rival him? Perhaps only Old Man Guy can do this, Li Tian said. Just a disciple, but he almost wants to unify the Ziwei ancient region. The leader behind him must be extremely terrifying. Otherwise, why would he dare to do this? Yan Ishi sighed. After Yi Fan erased the relevant memories from this person's head, he sent it back. He frowned. He had tried all kinds of methods, but it was all to no avail. Maybe it's time to ask some old friends to take action, Yan Ishi said. To that special sect? Li Tian asked. Yes, Yi Fan naturally also thought of this. Now he needed to seek help from the Heavenly Secret sect. Back then, When they left, Ancestor Heavenly Secrets was about to pass away. He saw a corner of the future and sent out 2 prophecies, which could be considered accurate. Li Tian and Yan Ishi had the Heavenly Secrets Command Talisman. According to the Ancestors' agreement, Heavenly Secrets Valley had to divine for them 4 times. Now there were still 2 left. Back then, Ancestor Heavenly Secrets had said that they could come back after 20 years. After Yi Fan and the others left, they were hundreds of millions of miles away from this place. They didn't know the coordinates of the way back, so they never thought they would come back. They had no intention of entering this sect again. Who knew that after more than 100 years, they would have a request again? The affairs of the world were unexpected. Taiyuan was located in the west of the Central Plains. It was a huge deep valley that didn't see the light of day all year round. It was extremely dark. The secluded Heavenly Secrets sect of the ancient secluded path closed its doors here. It was rare to see them in the world. All of this was because they could divine the Heavenly Secrets and were cursed by the heavens. They had no choice but to hide from the world. This sect was envied by the heavens. Although they had amazing divine arts, it was difficult for them to flourish. Throughout the generations, they only had a few disciples and were a secluded ancient sect. When Yi Fan and the others went deep underground, they were stunned. The Heavenly Secrets sect had been razed to the ground, and there was debris everywhere. It had been completely destroyed. This was like a bucket of cold water being poured on their heads, making them shiver all over. Coming here was the most effective shortcut. They might be able to find some clues about the little girl, but they didn't expect it to be directly destroyed. Who destroyed it? Li Tian gritted his teeth. It was the divine dynasty that descended from the outer realms, Yan Ishi said. They found a terrifying hole left by a battle spear here, and it was similar to the one in Ziwei Imperial City. Obviously, this powerful force that wanted to build the ancient heaven also wanted to use the prophecy of the Heavenly Secrets sect, but in the end, they destroyed this place. Yi Fan was disappointed and left this place. He felt that it would really take a long time to find the little girl. However, things often exceeded people's expectations. They searched in the Divine Prefecture in the east, and after half a month, they saw a Taoist child who took the initiative to greet them. Little Taoist, who are you? I am from the Heavenly Secrets sect, and I am here to deliver 2 pages of talisman paper to you, the little Taoist child said. The Heavenly Secrets sect avoided that disaster? Li Tian was surprised and at the same time shocked. This branch was really amazing to be able to find them. After avoiding the disaster of the past, we are living in seclusion in the short mountain up ahead. Another patriarch is about to pass away. There is still 1 day left, and I happen to see you here to think about your last matters in the mortal world. The little Taoist child showed a hint of sadness. In the distance, another middle-aged Taoist walked over. His black beard fluttered in the wind, and he looked like an immortal. Upon closer inspection, he looked somewhat familiar. It was the little Taoist child from more than 100 years ago, and now he had become the successor of the sect. Another patriarch is about to pass away, fulfilling his last wish. Our sect will completely hide from the world until the greatest change in the past 10,000 years is over. The middle-aged Taoist child had a sorrowful expression. Back then, he witnessed a patriarch die because of the jealousy of the heavens, and now another patriarch. This was a bad luck that they could not escape. My condolences. Yi Fan and the others didn't know how to comfort him, so they bowed silently and gave him some of the divine liquid of the ancient celestial being. The patriarch doesn't dare to calculate what you are looking for. Once he burns it, not to mention him, even the Heavenly Secrets sect's eternal inheritance will be completely annihilated. I only have a vague feeling that if you all head northwest, you will obtain something in this mortal world, the middle-aged Taoist said sorrowfully. In the end, both sides bowed to each other and parted ways. From then on, the Heavenly Secrets sect would no longer exist in this world for tens of thousands of years. In the bitter and cold northwest, a small figure was currently moving forward alone. His small clothes had long since become tattered beyond recognition. Chapter 1537. Heading northwest, meet in the world of mortals. This was the paper in Yi Fan's hands. It had long turned yellow. This was Heaven's Mysteries Gate's well-known talisman paper. These words were written on it. indicating that another ancestor was about to leave this world. Yi Fan and the others left quite far away. They turned around and bowed towards that short mountain. The various great inheritances and ancient sects entered the great wastelands one after another, entering the places with the densest spiritual essence. It was all because they felt that the little girl was formed from an undying immortal medicine, that she would like places with abundant life spiritual essence. It was to the extent where the Holy Lands didn't hesitate to enter a few forbidden regions. After all these years, they truly paid a bit of a price. That's more like it. In this world of mortals, how could the great sects meet? Yi Fan calmed himself down a bit. On the other side, Li Tian cried out strangely. There was also a talisman paper in his hands, on it a few words that made him excited. The human desire Tao will flourish. Me and senior brother will become the ancestors of resurgence. In short, the information they obtained wasn't bad, making them feel much more at ease. Only, whenever he thought of the little girl, Yi Fan's heart would still feel a bit sore. The little fella always suffered. Who knew how many cold eyes she had received in the world of mortals? After all these years, why didn't she grow up? This was something he couldn't understand. They headed northwest without any delays, fearing that something unexpected might happen. It was because the prophecy was just a reference and couldn't be completely trusted. The East's Divine Continent, North's Lu Continent, and West's He Continent all had great powers that couldn't be provoked. Yi Fan set out from the Divine Continent in a fixed direction. Even if he encountered an undying inheritance, he still had to charge through it. However, before he left Central Continent, he heard a few strange news. Did you guys hear? The Sun's Sacred Emperor's descendant has returned, and he is now extremely powerful. Is that true? Wasn't this bloodline completely wiped out? Even their immortal scriptures have been lost for tens of thousands of years. What kind of formidable figure can they produce now? Did you forget? That youth named Yi Fan saved their clan's only bloodline. During these few days, news of Yi Tong's return already spread, because someone saw him pay respects to his ancestors. It was a ruined land. Mountain ranges had collapsed, palaces had been shattered, rubble covered the ground, countless corpses and black mist suffused the air. It was a barren land. During the past half a month, every night, there would be someone crying in grief. The cultivators who passed by noticed that something was strange. They stopped to take a look and saw Yi Tong. Another 2 days passed, and shocking news came. Yi Tong shot the golden crow with her bow, killing more than 10 patrollers who had rushed to the ruins of the Solar Divine Court. This naturally caused a huge commotion. Yi Tong's strength exceeded everyone's expectations. She didn't even try to dodge, and she wanted to sweep through the Golden Crow bloodline. There's really going to be a battle. The Golden Crow definitely won't be able to sit still. Wiping out the bloodline of the human race's Saint Emperor will incur the wrath of the heavens. I have a premonition that the Golden Crow clan is too arrogant. Their good days are coming to an end. That young man named Yi Tong hasn't left during these days. He's building a grave there. He's quite confident. The barren mountain range had been cleared out by Yi Tong. His eyes were swollen from crying. He had gone to many places during these days, but he couldn't find his parents' corpses. He had even gone to the Black North Sea, but he couldn't find the remains of his old servant. In the end, he only found a young skeleton among all his relatives. Yi Tong cried his heart out and kowtowed on the ground. His body and mind were both trembling. How much older was the little sister from back then? Yet, she continuously comforted him during the crisis, and even stood in front of him in the end. Even now, thinking about it made his heart wrench. The thin girl, her frail body, her pale face, and her sad but beautiful smile were fixed in Yi Tong's heart. Every time he thought about it, his heart would shatter. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He was like a wounded lone wolf, and he couldn't help but howl at the sky. Golden Crow Clan, I Yi Tong, am not a bloodthirsty person. I don't want to exterminate you. But those who attacked me back then shouldn't even think about living. Those who destroyed my clan, I will cut you into 1,000 pieces. Yi Tong had never shouted himself hoarse like today. It was the first time he was so ferocious. His murderous aura surged and swept up to the sky. All the clouds were scattered, and in the distance, mountains collapsed. He didn't need to look for the Golden Crow clan. When he was building the grave and burying the countless bones in the ruins, someone from the Golden Crow clan came knocking. Moreover, his background wasn't small. He was a saint, and he led a majestic army. Evildoers of the past, how dare you come back today? Even the heavens want to exterminate your clan. It's a pity that the Sun Saint Emperor's prestige will end here. This old Golden Crow clan leader's words were quite harsh and vicious. He was provoking them. It's just an incarnation. Is your Golden Crow clan afraid? You want to test me, but you don't dare to come with your true body. You're just throwing your life away. Yi Tong roared. The might of the Saint King was displayed without mercy. In an instant, it covered the sky and earth. Light and divine radiance filled the place. He stretched out his hand and smashed the saint in front of him into pieces. As for the so-called army, they were all formed from golden feathers and not real bodies. The Golden Crow clan sent out the saint incarnation to test, but in the end, they were completely annihilated. The news spread throughout the continent. We're just passing by, so let's go and take a look. As a master, it wouldn't be right if I don't put in some effort. Yi Fan and the others received the news and headed northwest. They just happened to pass by the ruins of the Sun God Court. The divine continent was shaken. Everyone realized how powerful Yi Tong was. The Golden Crow clan was in big trouble this time. They would most likely pay the price for the bloody massacre in the past. He even dares to kill the descendants of my human race's Saint Emperor. He's too savage. Naturally, many people hoped that Yi Tong would personally kill the enemy. In the divine continent, violent winds swept about. The Golden Crow clan was furious. He was just a remnant of the past, but only a few years had passed. He had actually grown to such a level. This made them both angry and shocked. He's grown too fast. We have to kill him. Activate the clan's Great Sage Killing Formation, and do our best to kill him. His constitution is no different from the Sun Saint Emperor. Now that he has returned, he should be even stronger than we imagined. Not only do we have to activate the killing formation, but we also have to use the Great Sage weapon to kill him thoroughly. We also have to ask for our trump cards to appear. The Golden Crow clan was filled with killing intent. After being powerful for so many years, they were killed today. This made them, who had always been high and mighty and enslaved everyone, feel incomparably uncomfortable. On this day, killing intent surged and the clouds of battle filled the sky. The Golden Crow clan mobilized their weapons and sent out many experts. This time, it wasn't just images but their true bodies. Ancient war chariots rumbled one after another as they crushed the heavens. Battle intent surged as they drove towards the northwest of the divine continent. They once again arrived at the ancient land they had broken through in the past. It was unknown just how many Golden Crows had arrived. The sky was filled with golden shadows, and their wings covered the sky. The Golden Crow clan had mobilized so much that wiping out several great clans wouldn't be a problem at all. Evil creature, hand over your life. The Golden Crow clan shouted. It was still in this ancient land. Another crusade took place. Mountains and rivers were shattered. Yi Tong felt as if his heart was being twisted by a knife. In the past, it was precisely this group of people who destroyed his home and killed his loved ones, leaving him with a lifetime of pain. He attacked furiously, fighting against the Saint King realm great beasts. That was the clan's trump card. Pairs of golden wings unfolded, and sinister faces appeared one after another. All of them were laughing cruelly. War chariots filled the sky as endless spirit patterns descended. Little bastard. You left for so many years, yet you still dare to return. You are seeking your own death. The clan's powerhouses moved together, activating the Great Array. At the same time, a great sage artifact descended, its pressure covering the sky and earth. It wanted to imprison Yi Tong and take his life in an instant. This kind of attack was enough to break apart an immortal sect, but now all of it was concentrated on a single person. It could be said that the Golden Crow clan attached great importance to him. Although Yi Tong was indignant, he didn't lose his calm. He had been taught by Yi Fan and grasped the movement's secret art, so he didn't fall into the trap. With a speed that others couldn't comprehend, he instantly fled several dozen kilometers away and avoided certain death. Little evil creature, where do you think you are going? Even if you are the descendant of the Sun Saint Emperor, You won't be able to live. End this once and for all. The Golden Crow clan's powerhouses roared. They attacked together again, pressing forward. You came just in time. In the distance, Yi Fan, Li Tian, and Yan Ishi arrived. They had heard the news on the way here, so how could they not show up? They rushed over as soon as possible. Their expressions were extremely cold, and their killing intent soared. They were not only Yi Fan's disciples, but also Li Tian and Yan Ishi's disciples. It could even be said that they cared more about Yi Tong than Yi Fan. After all, they were the ones who raised Yi Tong. You guys dare to use force to suppress my disciple? Li Tian roared in anger. Meanwhile, the elegant Yan Ishi's expression also turned ashen. He directly took out the goddess furnace, and the dazzling divine furnace blossomed with boundless auspicious light. Dang! Li Tian slapped the furnace and threw it out. The divine furnace instantly enlarged, becoming incomparably huge. It smashed into the Golden Crow clan's great array, and with a loud boom, it was completely shattered. The Golden Crow clan's great sage artifact also collided with the goddess furnace at this time. The people of the Golden Crow clan were initially filled with hope, but their faces turned pale once again. The Golden Crow clan's great sage artifact couldn't compare to the goddess furnace at all. It was directly smashed into smithereens without any suspense. Ah! The sky was filled with miserable cries of the Golden Crows. It was unknown how many people had been buried in this enormous energy storm and turned into a bloody mist. Meanwhile, Yi Fan was also taking action. He protected the originally shattered mountains and rivers below, preventing the solar quartz ruins from suffering the impact, and protecting the tomb. The people in the distance were shocked. They knew that the Golden Crow clan was finished. With such a ferocious person taking action, it was useless even if they used all their resources. They were destined to be eliminated. Golden Crow King, where do you think you're going? Yi Tong roared. He remembered that this was a great completion king level expert from back then, and now, he was already a Saint King. However, he was fearless. The Golden Crow King's face was deathly pale. He recognized Yi Fan, and saw the goddess furnace clearly. He had never imagined that those people from back then would be so terrifying now. Most of the Golden Crows were still there. Li Tian and Yan Ishi didn't take action again. They only destroyed the killing formation and the great sage artifact. They were no longer worried about Yi Tong. Since we've already taken action, let's have a conclusion today. After speaking, Yi Fan directly tore apart the void and disappeared from his original location. He arrived at the Golden Crow clan's ancestral grounds. It was obvious that there was a great sage formation here. He drew his bow and nocked an arrow. An arrow tore apart heaven and earth. The mountain gate below directly collapsed, and the great formation was torn apart. When the second arrow landed, the entire formation was more or less destroyed. He shouted. The Sun Saint Emperor had made such great contributions, yet you guys can cold-bloodedly take action and wipe out his entire clan. Those who participated in the past stay behind. Those who didn't take action leave immediately. In the Golden Crow clan's important land, everyone had long been scared silly. The savagery of the past was nowhere to be seen. They were simply scared out of their wits. The entire clan fled, regardless of whether they had taken action in the past or not. They didn't dare to hold on here. Yi Fan didn't chase after them either. He reached out a large hand and grabbed all of them. Then he tore apart the void and threw them into the solar quartz ruins. Meanwhile, he himself stayed behind to destroy this ancient land. He was afraid that there was something strange here that would injure his own disciples. Honglong. Yi Fan's arrow shot out, directly blasting an ancient city into pieces and turning it into flying ashes. Light shone brilliantly. This place was strange after all. The buildings on the ground were all destroyed, but even more complicated formation patterns appeared underground. Younger generation, you dare? 7 or 8 figures rushed into the sky, shattering the divine origin. There was actually a great sage among them. An intense battle ensued. Incomparably terrifying formation patterns revived. Together with these people's attacks, heaven and earth were thrown into chaos. All of the experts in the Ziwei ancient star domain were shaken, rushing into the 9 heavens. In the end, Yi Fan returned. There were specks of blood on his body, all of it belonging to the Golden Crow clan. This clan's ancient land had been razed to the ground by him. I'll leave it for Yi Tong. Yi Fan sighed. The most powerful experts had all been swept away by him. It was because the great sage had already surpassed the scope of what Yi Tong could deal with. Now he didn't have to worry anymore. With this type of intimidation, it was likely that no one would dare plot against his disciple. Let's go. We'll head northwest. Yi Fan, Li Tian, and Yan Yishi left. Only a crying Yi Tong was left fighting between heaven and earth. The solar quartz ruins became a blood-soaked battlefield. Chapter 1538. A great gale blew over, causing the leaves to dance wildly in the wind. Thousands of layers of sand were swept up, and many weeds were uprooted. This was the northern Lu continent, a bitter and cold place. Yi Fan and the others crossed the strait, heading northwest to this place. They already didn't care about what happened behind them, but news continuously entered their ears. The Golden Crow race was defeated, many experts flapping their wings and fleeing to the ends of the world. The entire world was shocked. Who would have thought that the child from back then would grow to such an extent? He had returned after so many years of exile, killing the Golden Crow race into a mountain of corpses. Yi Tong had slaughtered his way to fame on the North Star. Everything he did was for the sake of avenging his parents. Those who had taken action in the past were all within his hunting range. The starry skies were stained with blood, and the fiendish earth was filled with the blood of the Golden Crow race. The divine continent, He continent, and Lu continent were all in an uproar. A grand and powerful race had fallen just like that. Even their ancestral ground had been destroyed. This shocked the entire world. The Golden Crow race was finished. This was the consensus of the people. On this day, many people took action to add insult to injury. The major powers and some powerful rogue cultivators specifically targeted lone Golden Crows, almost wiping out the race. As for the Golden Crow race's inheritance, it was naturally divided up cleanly. This was the reality. When a fierce tiger fell, a pack of wolves would rise up and attack it. A grand and powerful race was annihilated. The Golden Crow King's head was personally beheaded by Yi Tong and placed in front of the solar quartz ruins to be used as a blood sacrifice. On this day, Yi Tong cried loudly. The hatred and sorrow he had suppressed for many years were all vented out. The divine continent in the east was in an uproar, and the northern Lu continent was not peaceful either. Many people heard the news and went to fish in troubled waters. All of this had nothing to do with Yi Fan and Li Tian, and no one paid attention to it. The destruction of the Golden Crow race was imminent, so there was no need for them to take action or pay attention. Finding the little girl was the most important thing. However, there were also people who followed their tracks after seeing them display their might. They vaguely felt that there was something wrong with these three and wanted to find out what was going on. In the world, who knew how many pairs of eyes were watching the situation? Do these people have dog noses? They actually want to follow us. Li Tian said. In this world, there naturally weren't many people who could chase after them. They could get rid of them in an instant, but there were still those who persevered. Some of the major powers had secretly investigated and spied on the path they had taken in the past few days. When they discovered that they had been heading northwest, they were all suspicious. The northern wind blew the white grass off the ground. In the northwest, there were some places where snowflakes drifted down all year round. The more Yi Fan walked, the more he frowned. Little Nan Nan's frail body. Could it be that she really had to survive in this bitter land? He was a little worried. Presumably, only in the bitterly cold lands can one avoid those sacred sections. The denser the spiritual qi, the more dangerous it is, Yan Yishi said. How did little Nan Nan run to such a faraway place by herself? This made people puzzled, and they probably wouldn't be able to explain it either. The pitiful little girl had a lot of secrets. Is that little girl special? Why are you all so nervous? Godchild curled his lips. Don't talk so much, no one will think you're mute. Li Tian habitually gave him a slap on the butt. Pervert, I'll remember this. This is the 105th slap. You'll regret it in the future. Little Fatty said angrily. Mountain ranges rose and fell. Some regions were covered in white snow, while others were lush green. This was the north, the bitterly cold land. Different places had different appearances. Of course, the peak was definitely silvery white. Only below the mountainside would there be greenery, but occasionally it would be completely covered by snowflakes. Passing by a small town, Yifan saw a child begging on the street. He immediately rushed over, but was extremely disappointed. Although their ages were similar, they weren't the same person. He left behind some food and secretly gave her some money before silently retreating. When they reached the north, the resources were barren, and the mortals lived in poverty. It was far from being comparable to the warm south. There were many wanderers, and all of them were heading south. Half a month later, they entered the ice plains. It was even colder here. It was completely the scenery of the north, and the cold wind whistled. Of course, there were also some special places in the bitterly cold land. Spiritual chi flowed, transforming the frigid ice and snow into streams. There were oases where vegetation grew. Here, Yifan's brows furrowed even more. Goo. In the distance, there were snow-white ice crows flying about. They were a special type of morning birds. They were similar to crows, but their entire bodies were snow-white, and their cries were also the same. A savage beast died, attracting several hundred morning birds. They pecked at the ice and ate the rotten bones. The scene was drenched in blood. These morning birds have demonic energy, and some of them are almost dead. There are some special savage beasts and demonic birds in the bitterly cold land. Although ordinary people can kill them, it really isn't easy to live in this kind of environment, Yanishi said. Along the way, they saw the hardships of living in the bitter land. Whether a piece of land was fertile or not, it was related to the survival of some races. There are some people who can really act recklessly. Even though they don't know the reason, they still sent out so many people. They similarly headed northwest, and quite a few cultivators have appeared in the past few days. It seems there will be some twists and turns in the search for the little girl. These people smelled blood, and might have guessed something. Although there were people who had also found their way here, Yifan and the others weren't too worried. They only felt disgusted. These people seemed to have grown dog noses. The Reed Continent Immortal Tomb was left behind by my sect's ancestors. You all are not allowed to approach. There were people in the northern lands who sharply sensed something and severely reprimanded the foreign powers. Otherwise, if they approached, they would create a story about the Reed Continent Immortal Tomb. However, this naturally didn't have any effect. On the contrary, it made the number of people increase a bit. A few great powers all carried an attitude of giving it a try. They sent out people. If they could find a divine treasury, then this trip wouldn't have been made in vain. Come chase me. This was a very desolate corner of the northwest. There was a stockade village. Ice and snow swirled about, and a few children wearing beast skins ran through the snow, chasing each other. Because these children were born in the bitter land, they were all quite vigorous. None of them were pampered and spoiled. A few of the older children even carried small wooden bows and arrows on their backs, shooting snow rabbits. In the distance, in front of the stockade village, a lonely little figure appeared. She gazed at the children in the stockade village with longing and a bit of fear. Her entire body was dirty, and her little clothes had long been torn. She was a real little beggar. Who knew how many times she had fallen in the world of ice and snow, and her body was covered in ice shards. Her little face was red from the cold, and her clothes were tattered. She looked quite pitiful, and only her pair of large eyes could still be considered bright. They revealed a hopeful expression as she stared impatiently at the children in the stockade village. "The little beggar is here again," a child shouted. All the children looked over, and looked at the little girl who was about 3 years old. They stared at her for a long time. "Don't play with her," a slightly older boy shouted. "Little beggar, don't come anymore. We won't give you anything to eat. Hurry up and leave," another person shouted. "Hurry up and leave," many people shouted. The little girl who was about 3 years old lowered her head in grievance. She looked at her own tattered little shoes, and with tears in her eyes, she said in a small voice, "I didn't come for food. I just want to play with you all." "I'm not playing with you. You're a monster," a slightly older girl shouted angrily. "Nan is not a monster. I'm a human," the little girl said with grievance. She lowered her head even more, and tears swayed in her eyes. "You're still saying you're not a monster? Grandpa Sue and Grandma adopted you, but in the end, You still haven't grown up in almost 10 years. They raised children for old age, but the two old people died first. You still haven't changed at all. It was you who killed Grandpa Sue and Grandma, a teenage boy said angrily. It wasn't Nan Nan who killed Grandpa and Grandma. It really wasn't. The little girl shook her head. Tears fell from her eyes as she faced the snowy ground alone. Hurry up and leave. You're a monster. It was you who killed Grandpa Sue and Grandma. Hurry up and leave. Many people shouted. Don't be like this. The little beggar is very pitiful. She wandered into our stockade village like this. If we drive her out now, she will freeze or starve to death, a young girl said. Little Grass, don't sympathize with her. She's a monster, another child refuted. She often forgets things. I really don't know what kind of monster she is. Nan Nan didn't forget everything. I remember Grandpa Sue and Grandma. Nan Nan also remembers a big brother and a dog, the little girl said softly. In the past, you often met us and sometimes forgot. We don't want to talk to you anymore. Nan Nan didn't do it on purpose. I don't know what happened. It wasn't like this in the past. Nan Nan might be sick, the little girl said timidly, tears swirling in her eyes. Forget it. She won't leave. Let's go. Don't care about her. Many children ran into the stockade village. The little girl turned around alone and wiped away her tears. Alone she walked into the wind and snow. Her small figure made people's hearts ache. Little Nan Nan. Someone called from behind. The girl named Little Grass who had sympathized with her ran out and asked softly, Are you hungry? Very hungry. The little girl said softly with her head lowered. Here. Little Grass took out some food and stuffed it into her hands. Little Grass, come back quickly. She's a monster and will eat people. Last time, an old Taoist passed by here and took her into the demon pagoda to be refined. In the end, I heard that the old Taoist died instead. A child shouted from behind. Little sister, thank you. Nan Nan has a pearl here. I'll give it to you. The little girl wiped away her tears and handed a diamond-like crystal to Little Grass. She murmured, This thing only appears when I'm the saddest. When Grandpa Sue and Grandma passed away, it appeared beside me. In the end, a little girl in tattered clothes walked into the distance alone against the wind and snow. Her lonely figure was almost drowned in the heavy snow. Her voice was very young and her face was covered in tears. She murmured, Nan Nan still remembers a big brother and a dog, but they're all gone. The wind and snow danced. The lonely little body left a shallow footprint in the snow, leading into the distance. Chapter 1539. In the world of ice and snow, a small figure chased after them, panting and shouting. Little Nan Nan, don't go ahead. Uncle Lee just said that there's a sinkhole there, and there are people who can fly there. They'll catch monsters. Don't go. Xiao Chow ran over and reminded her. Then she stuffed a bag of food into her hands and turned to leave. I wonder where Nan Nan is going. The little girl looked at Xiao Cao's back and softly muttered to herself. She wiped away the tears on her face and walked in another direction. The icy plains were vast, and there weren't many places with vitality. As a result, villages and other places were dotted around in the vast world of ice and snow, and it was not easy to see them. Cold winds whistled and snow swirled in the air. There were many figures on an icy river because a sinkhole had appeared here. Some people said that a meteorite had fallen from outer space and created such a scene. But when they got closer, they didn't see any meteorites, nor were there any traces of burning. Some people said that this was an immortal burial ground. It was unknown whether it was the Taiyin ancient emperor or the Sun Saint Emperor who had come to this icy plains and left behind a comprehension after achieving the Tao. It could be considered a peerless treasure. In addition, some great sects in the north had announced that an immortal burial had appeared and requested external forces to leave. The appearance of a mysterious sinkhole naturally attracted many people to explore. When a king went deep inside and never appeared again, the news immediately exploded like a pot of boiling water. Whether it was the divine prefecture, which was restless because of the Golden Crow race, or the peaceful spring land in the south, all of them could not remain quiet. People from several provinces moved together. There were even some people who believed that Yi Fan, Li Tian, and Yan Ishi had come to the northwest because of this. They must have obtained some secret. Many people had arrived long ago. After losing track of them on the way, they directly came to the northwest and then went back in the opposite direction, thinking of ways to find Yi Fan's party. And now, this group of people happened to be the first to appear at the scene. They were both excited to see that sinkhole. Perhaps this really is the place where the Sun Saint Emperor left his comprehension piece. One must know that Yi Tong was with them. Even if her clan was destroyed, she might have left behind some clues. That's right, that must be it. A great emperor's Tao realization scripture is truly exciting and shocking. The development of the situation deviated from everyone's expectations. Even Yi Fan was shocked when he arrived at this icy field. Then, he felt that things were not too good. With so many people coming here, it would be truly worrying if they bumped into the little Nan Nan. He could not tolerate anyone capturing the little girl to refine medicine, and he did not want to see her being wronged. He had to find her as soon as possible. Not everyone was clueless in this frozen land. One of the old Taoist priests looked around as he walked, as if he was looking for something. That sinful disciple actually had heaven-defying luck to bump into a human-shaped undying herb. However, he was just too useless. He failed to refine the medicine, and was blown to death instead. The old priest muttered to himself, "Such a heaven-defying human-shaped immortal medicine. How could the Ziwei divine dynasty be careless? They must have left a forbidden treasure on him. That sinful disciple is truly disappointing. Why didn't they do a thorough check first?" The old Taoist used a special ability to understand what happened. In reality, he was not the only one. There was another middle-aged scholar who was fanning himself in the snowy land. Cold lightning shot out from his eyes as he searched for the little Nan Nan. It said that the divine infant disappeared and can't be seen. That's just misleading people. In these decades, she appeared at least 5 or 6 times and fell into the hands of others. Unfortunately, those lucky ones were too greedy and directly refined the medicine, resulting in a backlash. How could she be immortal with the aura of eternal life? They were all too careless. There was no lack of sharp people in this world. Through the movements of the grass in the wind and many spies, they could obtain the most valuable information through the tiniest traces. There were more than 1 or 2 people who guessed that the divine infant was in the north. Yi Fan appeared on the icy field and approached that area. When he saw so many cultivators, his expression turned cold as he looked at the vast snowy land. What is this place? Could it be that there really is the Sun Saint Emperor's comprehension scripture, or the tablet left behind by the human sovereign? Li Tian was surprised. He was from the Ziwei divine realm, and had naturally heard of the legends of the north. At this time, saints had already appeared, and even saint kings appeared. They stopped above the heavenly pit and frowned, not daring to go down, because there were rumors just now that saints had already gone down and hadn't come back up. Moreover, their divine senses would be quickly devoured, and it would be difficult to see anything. The figures of Yi Fan and the other 2 flashed and disappeared from where they were, entering the ground. They had emperor weapons in hand, so they were fearless and wanted to find out what was going on. A war chariot. This was a bronze war chariot, but it was deformed and almost melted. It collided with a special stone, and the bronze and stone fused together. What is this? Why are there blood vessels in the stone? Divine Child muttered. There was an expert in the war chariot who should have come from the outer realm. Unfortunately, he had almost turned into ashes, and only a piece of his Tao bone was left. This stone's material was special, and it was actually so terrifying. When the 2 collided, a Saint King level figure fell. Li Tian and Yan Ishi's eyes immediately went straight. They looked seriously, and then they let out a strange cry. Their faces were pale as if they had encountered the most terrifying thing. They quickly retreated, their faces covered in cold sweat. A portion of the divine senses they had just sent out had been devoured. Yi Fan held the immortal sword and blocked in front. He also felt a terrifying fluctuation devouring his divine sense, but it was stopped in the end. Could this be the legendary Heaven Desire Stone? Yan Ishi said with a trembling voice, as if he was extremely shocked. My human desire Tao's opportunity to rise was because of this? Li Tian was also trembling. What is a Heaven Desire Stone? Yi Fan didn't understand and asked. Yan Ishi said, Legend has it that it is a stone formed from the desires of the heavens. It contains boundless desires, making one lose themselves and devour the divine sense of mortals. It is the most terrifying. When exploring this stone, the slightest bit of carelessness could cause one's primordial spirit to be killed. It was because it was like the desire of a world. If a person explored it, their sea of consciousness would instantly explode. Some people speculate that the so-called Heaven Desire Stone is the product of the ancient quasi-emperor's failed Tao corroboration, flesh, and consciousness left behind by a star, Li Tian said. Yi Fan was immediately moved when he heard this. He wanted to become a great emperor, but in the end he broke apart at the last crucial step and was smelted into this kind of artifact. If this was true, then it would be immeasurably precious. There is another saying that an entire ancient star was destroyed, and the essence blood of countless heroic spirits and resentful souls were smelted together to form this miraculous object, Yan Ishi added. For the human desire Tao, this was a rare treasure. It complemented their cultivation techniques, and could be used to temper their human desires. One day of cultivation would be equivalent to several days of cultivation in the past. Can you guys put it away? Yi Fan asked. No problem. The senior and junior brothers nodded and took out the goddess furnace. This magical artifact was very special, and could easily swallow such a heaven-defying object. Yi Fan revealed a strange expression. He felt that the goddess furnace was many times stronger than he had imagined. It actually sealed the extremely rare Heaven Desire Stone, not letting any of its aura leak out. Shwa. The three of them appeared on the surface in an instant and left. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Then a brave person entered the sinkhole and shouted, "The thing has been taken away." The group followed Yi Fan's group from afar. Some people recognized it, so they didn't dare to speak. Some didn't, but they didn't dare to act rashly and wanted to see what would happen first. Yi Fan didn't take it to heart and continued forward. Suddenly, he stood in front of a stronghold and sensed a powerful life force. Still, only he could sense it. He disappeared in an instant and brought back a little girl. She cried out, "Where did you get this crystal?" Little Grass was a little scared. Little Nan Nan gave it to me. Little Nan Nan. Hearing this name again, Yi Fan's emotions fluctuated. He was incomparably excited and looked at Little Grass. "Where is she?" "You don't bully Little Nan Nan. She's actually very pitiful. Don't put her in the demon tower," Little Grass said. "Who dares to put Nan Nan in the demon summoning tower?" Yi Fan's expression immediately darkened. He instantly understood Little Grass's sea of consciousness, and then a look of shock and anger appeared on his face. He handed Little Grass to Yan Ishi for him to take care of. Then he disappeared from this place and rushed to the end of the ice plains. This child's constitution is not bad. What's rare is that she gets along well with Little Nan Nan, and takes good care of her. I think Yi Fan will give her some benefits. Why don't we put her in my carnal desires path?" Li Tian said. Yan Ishi was startled and shook his head. "Our lineage isn't suitable for her. If she's willing and wants to cultivate, she can be sent to the Moon Palace." "You aren't bad people?" Little Grass was far calmer than other children of the same age. Although she was afraid, she didn't panic to the point of not knowing what to do. Heavy snow swirled at the end of the horizon. A few figures were confronting each other, and among them was a little girl who was shivering. Her tattered clothes were very thin, and she was very small. She was almost buried in the wind and snow. She stood there, unable to move forward or backward. She was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. A few people surrounded her and were determined to obtain her. "I discovered the divine infant first, so it naturally belongs to this old man." "That's not right. I clearly arrived first. There won't be any results if we continue fighting like this. I think it's better to refine it into medicine, and then divide it evenly." When Little Nan Nan heard this, she couldn't help but take a step back. Her large eyes were filled with tears, and she said timidly, "Uncles, Nan Nan is very obedient. Don't hurt me." Although the immortal divine medicine is nature-defying and cultivated a human form, it still hasn't refined a great divine ability. Your fate has already been decided. You're born to be a medicine. The middle-aged scholar smiled, but the hidden coldness in his bones made people shiver. Such a great immortal fate has actually been encountered by us. I agree to refine it into medicine first and then divide it evenly, an old Taoist said. Roar! A loud roar came from afar. A figure stood on the peak of a mountain. His eyes were like lightning, and he saw everything here. It was Yi Fan. He sensed little Nanan's aura from far away. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, it was as if a vast ocean had swept up the sky in his heart. In an instant, it turned into a divine light and rushed over. It was as fast as a sudden clap of thunder, causing the boundless snowy region to tremble and triggering a great avalanche. Let's see who dares to hurt Nan Nan. A loud roar shook the heavens and the earth. The waves rushed toward several figures, but at the center, little Nan Nan was calm and tranquil. Snowflakes didn't dance. Who's there? How dare you steal food from the tiger's mouth and fight for the divine infant with me? Are you tired of living? Roar! Yi Fan's anger and battle intent shot through the 9 heavens. It was the first time he was so angry in recent years. Golden blood chi surged and surged into the sky. He appeared in the field. Uft, uft. Angry shouts and screams came from the field. But none of them were as shocking as the blooming flowers of blood. These people were saints, but they exploded one after another. One after another. They were all crushed by Yi Fan's roar. Their white bones were stained with blood and splattered everywhere. During this process, Yi Fan had already arrived. He picked up little Nan Nan and covered her eyes so that she wouldn't see this terrifying scene. Is it Big Brother? Nan Nan is dreaming again. The little girl whispered pitifully. Her eyes were filled with tears, and they rolled down when they touched Yi Fan's finger. When Yi Fan heard this, his heart was about to break. He felt extremely bitter and said, "It's all Big Brother's fault. It took me so many years to find you. This isn't a dream. Nan Nan won't be wronged anymore." The little girl's body suddenly trembled. She stretched out a pair of ice-cold hands to touch his cheeks and said timidly, "Is it really Big Brother?" Yi Fan carried her away from this place. The blood and bones disappeared. He stood on a snowy peak before letting go and putting her down. The little girl was too pitiful. Every word she said made his heart tremble. "Big Brother, Nan Nan finally sees you again." The little girl raised her head to look at him. Her eyes were filled with surprise. Tears kept rolling down her cheeks. She tightly grabbed onto the corner of his clothes, afraid that it would disappear if she let go. She said, "Nan Nan is sick and has forgotten a lot. No one plays with me. They all ignore me and chase Nan Nan into the snowy plains. I miss Big Brother." These words were like needles that pierced into Yi Fan's heart. He blamed himself and felt heartache. It took so many years to find him. Little Nan Nan had suffered too much. The little girl's tattered clothes were thin. Her shoes were full of holes and her toes were almost exposed. She was dirty all over. Only her big eyes that were filled with tears were clear and bright. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail that had never changed. A child around 3 years old dressed like this in this world of ice and snow looked especially pitiful. Big Brother is here. He won't let Nan Nan suffer anymore. Yi Fan picked her up and placed her on his shoulder. Golden rays of light overflowed and enveloped the little girl. In the distance, there was a long howl. Naturally, there were people who noticed the commotion here. The birth of the nascent soul had shocked everyone. The entire polar region was in an uproar. Even the bitter cold could not stop the fire in people's hearts. All the major forces who received the news rushed over with their men. Nan Nan is scared. The little girl sat on Yi Fan's shoulder. Seeing so many people rushing over, her big clear eyes were filled with unease. This was not the first time she had experienced something like this. It left a shadow in her heart, and she was slightly terrified. Even though her memory was blurred, she still reacted instinctively. "Don't be afraid, Nan Nan. No one can hurt you anymore. They are nothing. It doesn't matter even if everyone in the world is looking for you. So what if the whole world is your enemy? Kill them all," Yi Fan said forcefully. His words shook the entire snowy plains.